At 6 months pregnant, I suddenly gained the ability to hear my baby's thoughts. My daughter was crying, "Mom, my sister is pinching my umbilical cord. It hurts so much." I believed her. I ate and supplemented frantically, even asking the doctor if there was any medicine to inhibit my other daughter's growth. The day I gave birth, the baby was too large, and I hemorrhaged badly. Only the elder sister was born. The younger sister died in the womb, before my consciousness faded. I saw my eldest daughter give me a sinister smile. "Fool, I'll gladly take your fate, your sister's, and your father's for myself." The daughter I fought so desperately to protect was a monster from the very start. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the very first day I heard her inner thoughts. 1. A sharp, twisting pain gripped my abdomen. I woke from the darkness, an unfamiliar ceiling, a familiar chandelier. "This is the bedroom Rowan and I share. I'm not dead." I reached out and touched my heavily pregnant belly, warm, real. A sharp, piercing voice exploded directly inside my mind. "Mom, my sister is pinching my umbilical cord again. It hurts so much. She wants to kill me. She wants to hog all of Mom's nutrients for herself." My body went rigid. That sound, I remember. I bolted upright, looking around, the calendar on the wall, its numbers a vivid red. The 15th day of the 8th lunar month. I was 6 months pregnant. The day I first heard my eldest daughter's inner thoughts. "I'm home, Mom. Why aren't you saying anything? You need to eat, or my little sister is going to drain me dry. Useless little sister, why won't you just die already?" I closed my eyes. Images from my past life flooded my mind like a tidal wave. I believed what she said. My eldest daughter, Lilith. I believe every word she says. I believe it's my younger daughter, Clara. Who's hurting her? I started eating compulsively, chicken soup, fish broth, all sorts of nutritional supplements. I forced myself to eat until I was sick. I just wanted to protect Lilith. I even asked the doctor if there was any medication that could inhibit the development of the other fetus. The doctor looked at me as if I were insane. Rowan tried to reason with me too, saying they were both our children. I wouldn't listen. On the day of the delivery, I had a difficult labor because both babies were so large. Blood soaked the operating table. The doctor asked, "Save the mother or the baby." With my last ounce of strength, I cried out, "Save the baby, save my Lilith." Rowan was outside, signing the forms. He agreed. I can feel my life slipping away. In my fading consciousness, I saw Lilith being carried out. She didn't cry. She turned her head and looked in my direction. She smiled. I heard the last words she spoke to me. "Fool, you'll believe anything. Your fortune, your sisters, and even Dad's. They all belong to me now, so." She was the real monster all along. The one I fought so desperately to protect was a devil, and my quiet daughter, the one who never spoke a word, my Clara, to the very end. She never once called out to me for help. I am dead, consumed by endless regret. "Mom, what are you spacing out for? Go eat something." Lilith's impatient voice rang out again. "This old thing is so slow. I'm starving to death over here. Once I'm born, the first thing I'm doing is stealing Rowan away, leaving you all alone." My eyes opened, a chill settled in the depths of my gaze. I slowly got out of bed. My body felt heavy and cumbersome with pregnancy. I walked into the living room. My mother-in-law was coming out of the kitchen, holding a bowl of chicken soup. "Rhea, you're awake. Here, drink this while it's hot. It's good for you and the baby." In my past life, it was after drinking this very bowl of soup that my journey of forced weight gain began. I stared at the bowl of greasy chicken soup. My stomach churned. "Drink it. It's good for you. Drink up. We'll both grow strong and crush that good-for-nothing." Lilith shrieked with excitement. I picked up the bowl. Under my mother-in-law's expectant gaze, I walked over to the sink. Splash. A whole bowl of chicken soup was poured right in. "Rhea, what are you doing?" A sharp cry from my mother-in-law rang out behind me. Her voice was shrill, laced with disbelief. I ignored her. I turned on the faucet. Water streamed over the greasy surface of the bowl. "You're insane. You foolish woman." You poured out the soup. Lilith was screaming furiously inside my head. "That was mine. That was my sustenance. Are you trying to starve me? Do you want that little good-for-nothing to get his way?" I washed the dishes with a blank expression. "Rhea, have you lost your mind? That's the free-range chicken soup I've been simmering all morning." My mother-in-law rushed over and snatched the bowl right out of my hands. Her eyes were as wide as saucers. "If you didn't want it, you didn't have to drink it, but why pour it out? Do you have any idea how hard Rowan works for his money?" I turned off the faucet. I turned around and looked at her calmly. "Greasy." I uttered a single word. My mother-in-law froze. "What?" I said. "It's too greasy. The smell is making me nauseous." I pointed at the chicken fat in the sink. "The doctor said I need to watch my weight in the 3rd trimester and eat light." "That's nonsense." "What doctor said that? When you're pregnant, you need to eat for 2. My mother-in-law immediately shot back. "Dear Jean, the head of the Municipal Maternity and Child Health Hospital." I invoked the name of the most authoritative doctor in the hospital. "From now on, I'll be in charge of my own diet." I looked at my mother-in-law and spoke, enunciating every word. "You don't need to worry about it. That damn old woman, all she ever does is ruin my plans. Mom, don't listen to the doctors. They're all liars. They're trying to hurt me." Lilith was still screaming. I simply ignored her. My words left the old woman speechless. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. My gaze fell upon the fruit bowl on the coffee table. There lay a bunch of grapes. In a past life, Lilith said she wanted to eat some grapes. I ate an entire crate of them. My blood sugar spiked at the end, and I nearly developed preeclampsia. Mom, I see grapes. I want some. Lilith's tone suddenly changed. It became soft and sweet. It sounded like a coquettish plea. You're the best, Mom. Please, can I have some grapes? I walked over. I picked up the bunch of grapes, thinking I was about to eat it. My mother-in-law's expression softened a little. I plucked one and put it in my mouth. It was very sweet. Yes, that's the taste. Eat up, Mom. Lilith's voice was full of satisfaction. I chewed a couple of times. I walked over to the trash can. I spat out the grape, skin, seeds and all. Then, I took the whole remaining bunch of grapes in my hand. I threw it all in the trash. Lilith's scream was almost enough to pierce my eardrums. Granny was completely dumbstruck. She pointed at me, her finger trembling. Rhea, what on earth are you trying to do? The door opened. Rowan is back. He was wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase. He saw the standoff in the living room and frowned. Mom, Rhea, what's going on? As if she had found her pillar of support, the mother-in-law immediately started complaining. Rowan, you need to get your wife under control. I don't know what's gotten into her today. She poured out the chicken soup I made and threw away the grapes I bought. I think she just doesn't want my precious granddaughter to be happy. Rowan looked at me. His gaze held a question. Dad's home. Lilith's voice instantly turned plaintive and sweet. Dad, Mom is being mean to me. She won't give me any food. She's trying to starve me. You need to talk to her. I looked at Rowan, gazing at the man I loved for years, who in a past life signed away my existence himself. My heart remains unmoved. Rowan, I've scheduled the prenatal checkup with Director Zhang tomorrow morning, I said. Take a day off and come with me. 3. Rowan was taken aback. He hadn't expected me to make such a request. In the past, to show how considerate and understanding I was, I never asked him to take time off work to accompany me to my prenatal checkups. I always went by myself, or had my mother-in-law come with me. When my mother-in-law heard this, she was even more displeased. What's the point of another checkup? Didn't you just have one last week? Rowan is so busy with work. He doesn't have time to run you to the hospital every day. Don't go to the hospital. Lilith's voice held a trace of panic. I hate hospitals. There's something in there that will hurt me. Mom, don't go. I'm scared. Scared. You're just afraid the ultrasound will show what you've been up to. I thought to myself with a cold sneer. I'm not feeling well. I looked at Rowan, my tone flat. With 2 on the way, it's better to be careful. Rowan's gaze fell on my swollen belly. He fell silent for a moment. Finally, he gave a nod. All right. I'll take the morning off tomorrow. He took off his suit jacket and handed it to his mother-in-law. Mom, Rhea is having a tough pregnancy and her emotions are all over the place. Please be patient with her. He's just trying to smooth things over. It's also his way of hinting that I should give my mother-in-law an easy way out. In my past life, I would have taken the hint and apologized to my mother-in-law, but now, I just let out a faint then I turned and went back to the bedroom. Thud. I shut the door, shutting them out, the mother and her child. How dare this useless wretch give orders to father? Just wait until I'm born. I'll make her pay for this. Lilith was still cursing, but Dad is still on my side. He agreed to go to the hospital, probably just to see if that little waste of space has kicked the bucket yet. Perfect. Tomorrow, I'll get to see her dead with my own eyes. Her words sent a chill down my spine. Is that something a fetus could possibly say? I walked over to the bed and sat down. I gently placed my palm on the right side of my abdomen. That's where Clara is. She was always so quiet, in fact, that I often forgot she was even there. In my past life, I never once heard her speak a word, right up until the day I died. Clara, I'm sorry. Mom is back. This time, I will protect you. I promise. I lie down and close my eyes. I stopped listening to anything Lilith had to say. The next day, sure enough, Rowan had taken the day off. We drove to the hospital. On the way, he tried to start a conversation with me. Rhea, have you been under a lot of stress lately? Your mother's getting on in years. She speaks her mind. Don't take it to heart. I looked out the window. No response. Dad is talking to me. He's showing he cares. That idiot mom. Dad's talking to her and she's ignoring him. Serves her right to be left behind, Lilith said smugly. Arrived at the hospital. Registered, and waited in line. All the procedures were the same as in my previous life. Finally, it was my turn. I was lying on the examination table. Director Zhang operated the equipment himself. The cold ultrasound gel was applied to my abdomen. I felt a bit nervous. 2 small figures appeared on the screen. They were huddled close together. Director Zhang adjusted the probe. This one is the older sister, right? She pointed at the larger figure on the screen. Look, her hand. It looks like. My heart leapt into my throat. Her hand, it looks like it's resting on her sister's umbilical cord. Director Zhang's words hit me like a sledgehammer to the heart. Rowan leaned in to look as well. His face instantly changed. Mom, look, my sister is dying. Lilith's excited voice rang in my head. The doctor and Dad both saw. They're going to get rid of this little waste. Mom, begged the doctor. Quick, save me. I stared at the screen. The image is blurry, but I can see it. Lilith's hand is indeed resting on Clara's umbilical cord. Just like in the previous life, this is the evidence of her slander against Clara. Rowan tightened his grip on my hand. His voice was trembling. Doctor, what is this? Is the older sister pinching the younger one? Director Zhang frowned, scrutinizing the screen carefully. Don't worry, the ultrasound has a parallax error. Let me try a different angle. She moved the probe. The image on the screen changed. I saw it clearly. Lilith's hand wasn't just resting on it, but desperately clutching it, for there was a fear in Rowan's voice that even he was unaware of. He bought it, just like my past self would have. The moment I saw that footage, I condemned Clara. Dad saw it too. That's great. He's definitely going to hate that little brat to death. Lilith was cheering and jumping for joy inside my head. Mom, cry, quick, act pitiful, quick. Tell the doctor and Dad that your stomach hurts because your little sister pinched you. Hurry up, you idiot. Her urging was sharp and grating. I ignored her. My gaze fell calmly upon Director Zhang's face. Director Zhang, I spoke, my voice unnervingly calm for a worried mother. In a twin pregnancy, can one fetus's hand grip the other's umbilical cord like this? I deliberately chose the word grip, rather than hitch a ride. Rowan whipped his head around to look at me. His eyes were full of confusion. Director Zhang also shot me a surprised glance. She adjusted her glasses and took a closer look at the screen. It's definitely clenched, she murmured thoughtfully. This situation is extremely rare. Generally speaking, it's normal for fetal limbs to make occasional contact within the confined space of the uterus. However, this kind of sustained, forceful grasping could compromise the blood flow and nutrient supply to the grasped fetus. Her words landed like a boulder dropped into a still pond. Rowan's face instantly drained of color. Affecting the nutrient supply, then could my sister be in danger? He asked urgently. Danger? Good riddance if she died. Dad is worried about me. Yes, he must be worried I'll be dragged down by this useless waste, Lilith thought with venom. Director Zhang did not answer immediately. She adjusted the instrument, and the data on the screen began to flicker. For now, your sister's readings are all excellent, even a bit above the standard. Your daughter's readings are within the normal range, but they're on the lower end. This indicates there is indeed an imbalance in nutrient absorption. Director Zhang's tone became serious. Mrs. Ria, has your diet been too rich in oily foods lately? I nodded right away. Yes. My mother-in-law makes me all kinds of nourishing soups every day. I told her they're too greasy, but she doesn't believe me. My tone was full of resignation. Rowan's lips moved, but no words came out. He was fully aware of his mother-in-law's actions. Nonsense. Director Zhang's tone grew stern. Who says pregnancy means you have to overeat? With twins, it's even more crucial to focus on a scientific diet and manage your weight. An oversized baby only increases the risks during delivery, which is no good for either mother or child. Starting today, cut out all those greasy, heavy tonic soups, eat more vegetables and high-quality protein, and strictly follow the diet plan from the nutrition department. Director Zhang's every word felt like a slap in the face to my mother-in-law, and an even harder slap to the foolish me from my past life. No, don't stop. Lilith let out a desperate scream inside my mind. That damn old woman, she's trying to starve me to death. Mom, argue with her. Tell her I want meat. I want soup. Of course I wouldn't argue. I looked at Director Zhang and gave a solemn nod. Okay, doctor, I'll remember that. So, how do we solve the problem of the older sister holding on to the younger one's umbilical cord? I steered the conversation back on track. That was the real issue for today. Director Zhang let out a sigh. There's nothing we can do to influence the baby's behavior in the womb. All we can do is monitor the situation very closely. You'll need to come in for a weekly ultrasound to monitor the umbilical blood flow for the little sister. If any of the indicators are abnormal, you'll need to be admitted to the hospital immediately, and an early C-section might even be necessary. Of course, there's no need to be overly anxious. Your big sister might just let go in a little while. That will take a bit of luck. The examination is over. I slowly sat up in bed. Rowan helped steady me. His palms were clammy with cold sweat. Thank you, doctor, I said to Director Zhang. I walked out of the ultrasound room. Rowan said nothing. His brow was furrowed, as if deep in thought. He no longer saw it as simply one child bullying another, as he had at the beginning. Director Zhang's words made him realize the complexity of the issue. One indicator being out of range can strangle the other, like a hand gripping an umbilical cord. If an indicator falls below the standard, the nutrient supply could be compromised. This scene No matter how you look at it, doesn't seem like the weak fighting back. It looks more like the strong bullying the vulnerable. A seed of doubt was finally planted in my husband's heart. 5. Arrived home. My mother-in-law immediately came to greet me. Well, what did the doctor say? Her face was a picture of anticipation. She was hoping the doctor would confirm her suspicion that her younger granddaughter was unwell and needed to build up her health. Unlike the older one, Rowan glanced at me, said nothing, and went straight to the living room to pour some water. He clearly wanted no part in this conversation. That's exactly what I wanted. I need to personally shatter all of my mother-in-law's illusions. The doctor says I'm getting too many nutrients, I said calmly. Both babies are measuring large, especially the older one. She's already 2 weeks ahead of schedule. The doctor told me to start watching my diet from today. I can't have any more of those rich, oily soups. My mother-in-law's smile froze on her face. That can't be right. Could the doctor have made a mistake? Bigger is better. It means they're healthy. Rowan weighed a solid 8 pounds at birth. What a robust baby. She's still clinging to her old-fashioned ideas. Exactly. This doctor is a quack. Mom, don't listen to her. Let's just keep drinking our soup. Lilith was still fanning the flames. Mom, I looked at her, my gaze more resolute than ever before. I'm the one giving birth. And I'm the one taking on all the risks. If the baby is too large and leads to a difficult delivery, I'm still the one on the operating table. So, starting today, I decide what I eat. If you're so concerned about the soup you made, you can drink it yourself, or give it to Rowan. Don't bring that in front of me again. My words were blunt and unsparing. My mother-in-law's face flushed, then paled. She probably never imagined that someone as docile as me would say such a thing. Her lips trembled with anger as she looked to Rowan, wanting him to settle the matter. Rowan, listen to that. Just listen to what she's saying. Rowan leaned back on the sofa, holding a glass of water. He pinched the bridge of his nose wearily. Mom, let's just do what Rhea says. We should always listen to the doctor's advice. He didn't support me, but he didn't oppose me either. He simply chose to trust the authority. But to the mother-in-law, it was a bolt from the blue. She couldn't believe her own son would actually side with his wife. She stamped her foot, turned, and stormed into the kitchen, the clatter of pots and pans following her inside. Useless, absolutely useless. Can't even handle your own mother. Lilith was fuming inside my head. Fine, if you won't feed me, I'll find a way myself. I refuse to believe I can't drain that little runt dry. I ignored her. I walked straight into the study. I turned on the computer and began searching for information on cord entanglement in twin pregnancies and twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. In my past life, I knew nothing about these things. I was foolish, blindly following Lilith's words and force-feeding myself. In this life, I will arm myself with science. I will show Rowan not a hysterical, mad woman, but a rational, calm mother, diligently studying to protect her child. The entire afternoon I spent it reading various medical papers and case studies. The more I read, the heavier my heart grew. Lilith's behavior had already transcended that of a normal fetus. It was a deliberate, targeted attack. Evening, Rowan entered the study. He froze, staring at the dense wall of medical terminology on my computer screen. Rhea, are you looking at these? Yeah. I pointed to a case on the screen. Look at this one. It's very similar to our situation. It was twins, too. One baby was holding the other's lifeline. In the end, both children. I didn't finish the sentence, but Rowan understood. His expression grew even more grave. Stop looking. He turned off my computer. Don't scare yourself. Didn't the doctor say we should observe? Rowan, I looked up and met his gaze. I don't believe in luck. I only believe in myself. If observation can't solve the problem, I'll find a doctor who can. I'll search the entire country, the entire world if I have to. In my eyes, there was no fear, no panic, only the resolve to burn my boats. Rowan looked at me, silent for a long while. In my eyes, he saw a kind of strength he had never witnessed before. It was a mother's resolve, fierce and utterly fearless. What an act. So, you're just trying to hurt me after all. Just you wait. I'm going to make you regret this. Suddenly, a sharp, stabbing pain shot through my lower abdomen. It felt like a needle was being driven deep into my womb. I let out a pained grunt, and a cold sweat instantly broke out on my forehead. What's wrong? Rowan immediately grew tense. My stomach hurts. I grabbed his hand and pressed it against the lower right side of my abdomen, where Clara is, right here. It feels like the older sister is kicking the younger one. I was deliberately vague. Rowan's hand rested on my stomach. He could feel it clearly, on the left side of my abdomen. From Lilith's space, something was pounding fiercely, again and again, against the right side. That was no ordinary kick. It was a vicious, malicious attack. His pupils contracted sharply. 6. Rowan's hand froze on my abdomen. What he could feel was a savage, pounding throb, one beat, then another, each one, unerringly, in the same direction, and with each impact, my body convulsed in waves. She's been moving. Rowan's voice was dry. Yes. I leaned against him, feigning weakness. It's been pretty much nonstop since this afternoon. I looked it up. They say frequent fetal movement in the third trimester can be a sign of oxygen deprivation. I subtly fed him the information I had gathered. Rowan's expression grew increasingly grim. He was a man who believed in science and logic. Everything unfolding before his eyes was shattering his understanding of the world. How could a fetus exhibit such intense, sustained, and targeted aggression? It defied all reason. I'll kick you to death. Kick you to death, you little waste of space, and you stupid woman, how dare you not give me the good food? I'll make you both suffer. Lilith's roar confirmed my suspicion. She was getting her revenge. She was getting back at me for dumping the chicken soup, for throwing away the grapes, for not listening to her. This was her way of punishing Clara and me. The pain lasted for about 10 minutes. Lilith seemed worn out, too. The pounding in my stomach finally stopped. I let out a long sigh of relief. Cold sweat had soaked through my pajamas. Rowan helped me sit down on the edge of the bed. He poured me a glass of warm water. Rhea, we're going to the hospital tomorrow. His voice held an air of unquestionable finality. We can't wait any longer. I had someone reach out to Professor Lee at the Provincial Maternity and Child Health Hospital. He's the top fetal medicine specialist in the country. My heart skipped a beat. Professor Lee, in my past life, after a difficult labor, Clara didn't make it. In his grief, Rowan sought out Professor Lee to understand the cause of Clara's death. Professor Lee concluded that the fetus had suffered from prolonged malnutrition and oxygen deprivation, which ultimately led to organ failure. The root cause of this was the other, overdeveloped fetus. At the time, Rowan had thought it was simply because Clara herself was too weak. He had no idea it was Lilith's premeditated murder. Months in the making. In this life, I won't give Lilith that chance again. All right, I gave a nod. Experts, not this again. Will you just leave me alone? I'm perfectly fine. I don't need to see a doctor. Lilith's voice was thick with resistance and fear. She was scared. She was terrified that her act would be exposed by more advanced equipment and more skilled doctors. I absolutely cannot let you go, Mom. Hurry up and tell Dad that your stomach doesn't hurt anymore, that you're fine. Say it, now. She started giving me orders, as if I would ever listen to her. Not only am I going, I'm going fully prepared. Early the next morning, Rowan went to arrange for a car and make the appointment. My mother-in-law's expression darkened when she saw we were heading to the hospital again. Do you think the hospital is your second home? All these daily checkups, the radiation can't be good for the baby. She was still going on about her baseless theories. I walked right past her without a word. Just before heading out, I went into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and took out the half bunch of grapes left over from yesterday. I slowly ate one right in front of my mother-in-law. Grapes, they're grapes. Lilith's voice instantly became elated. You know what's good for you. No, eat more. I didn't eat any more. I threw all the rest into the trash. Then, I took out an apple and took a big bite. Crisp, you. The roar in my mind sounded once more. A familiar, sharp pain shot through my abdomen. Lilith was attacking me with her old tricks again. Excellent. I'm doing this precisely to provoke you. My goal is to make you reveal your malice, completely and unreservedly, in front of that expert. Gritting my teeth against the pain, I walked out of the house, get in Rowan's car. Does it hurt again? Seeing my pale face, he immediately asked. I pointed to the left side of my abdomen. It seems she doesn't like it when I eat apples. Rowan's knuckles were white where he gripped the steering wheel. He didn't say another word. I just slammed my foot down on the accelerator. The car sped down the road. I leaned back in the seat, resting my hand gently on the right side of my abdomen, over where Clara was. Don't be afraid, little one. We're going to get reinforcements. This time, I won't let you fight this battle alone. 7. Provincial Maternity and Child Health Hospital, the top fetal medicine center in the country. Everything here is different from the Municipal Maternal and Child Health Hospital. The corridor is so quiet that you can only hear your own heartbeat. Every healthcare worker is walking quickly with serious expressions. Rowan pulled some strings, so we got to see Professor Lee directly. He looked to be in his 50s, with graying hair, but his eyes were as sharp as a hawk's. He didn't waste any time with pleasantries and went straight to reviewing our test results from the Municipal Maternity and Child Health Hospital. The ultrasound shows that T1, your older daughter, is persistently grasping T2's umbilical cord. Professor Lee pointed at the blurry ultrasound image. Regular, directional impacts in the abdominal region. Is that correct? He looked at me. I nodded. Yes. It happens every day, especially after I eat something she doesn't like. I chose my words very carefully. I didn't say Lilith doesn't like it. I said she doesn't like it. I positioned myself as an objective, yet perplexed, mother. Professor Lee's gaze lingered on my face for a few seconds. Mr. Rowan, have you ever personally experienced that kind of impact? He then turned to Rowan. Rowan's face looked grim. I have. His voice was a little hoarse. That wasn't a kick, it was more like an attack. He said the word. Professor Lee nodded. Understood. Go and get a detailed 4D ultrasound. I need real-time dynamic imaging. Also, perform a fetal heart rate monitoring. With separate tracings, we were taken to another examination room. The equipment here was far more advanced than at the Municipal Maternity and Children's Hospital. The screens were larger and the images much clearer. I lay down again. A cold instrument glided across my belly. Lilith seemed to sense a threat. What the hell is this place? These things, they're making me really uneasy. Mom, let's go home. I don't want to stay here. Her voice was thick with anxiety and unease. She began thrashing violently inside my womb, more fiercely than ever before. A pained grunt escaped my lips. It's starting, I said to the doctor performing the procedure. Professor Lee and Rowan were standing right in front of the screen. They could see it clearly, the light representing Lilith, like a raging bull, charging again and again into the small, quiet, huddled light on the right. Clara, my Clara, to escape the assault, had retreated to the farthest corner of the womb, but Lilith was relentless. She even kicked out with her foot, putting all her strength into it. On the screen, the point of light representing Clara trembled incessantly from the violent impact. Rowan's breath caught in his throat. His eyes were glued to the screen, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles cracked. Words fail in the face of such stark reality. This is not a fantasy. It is not my speculation. This is a deliberate, cruel reality unfolding right now. Get out of my way. All of you, get lost. Why won't this useless little wretch just die already? I'm furious. Lilith was still raging. Little did she know, every single one of her movements, every attack, was being captured in high definition and projected with perfect clarity, right before my husband's eyes. The examination lasted for half an hour. To me, it felt like an eternity. When it was over, I had to be practically helped out of the room. In Professor Lee's office, the atmosphere was suffocatingly oppressive. The situation is even more serious than I had imagined. Professor Lee's expression was one of a gravity he had rarely shown in his decades-long career. This isn't a simple case of twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. Nor is it a routine umbilical cord entanglement. This is a fetal behavior I've never seen before, one that exhibits clear, deliberate aggression. T1 is using every means at its disposal to try and prevent T2's survival. This includes, but is not limited to, competing for nutrients, restricting space, and direct physical assault. Fetal heart monitoring shows that every time T1 launches an attack, T2's heart rate plummets dramatically, at times falling below the danger threshold. This indicates that T2 is already experiencing fetal distress, which means a lack of oxygen. If this continues, she won't even make it to birth. She'll be stillborn due to oxygen deprivation and malnutrition. Each word from Professor Lee felt like an icy knife, plunging into Rowan's heart. He sat there, his body rigid and completely still, the color drained from his face. What? Oxygen deprivation? Is that little wretch going to die? Lilith's voice suddenly became tinged with excitement. Yes. We're finally going to make it. Die. Just die already. Her jubilant cheers stood in the most cruel contrast to the deathly silence of the office. I closed my eyes, burying every emotion deep within. Professor, I spoke up, breaking the silence. What should we do? Professor Lee looked at me, a hint of sympathy in his eyes. At this point, the only option is to preserve T2 as much as possible. First, we must completely cut off the excessive nutritional supply to T1. I will provide you with a strict dietary plan. You must follow it daily, down to the gram. This plan will ensure T2's basic nutritional needs are met, but it will leave T1 feeling hungry. Hunger will weaken her and, in turn, reduce her aggression. Secondly, I recommend you be admitted to the hospital for observation. We need to monitor T2's fetal heart rate around the clock, should any emergency arise. We will perform an intrauterine intervention immediately, or even proceed with an early cesarean section. Mrs. Rhea, Mr. Rowan. Professor Lee stood up and looked at us solemnly. You must brace yourselves. Every day from now on will be a battle. The one you must protect is a child who cannot cry for help, and your enemy is another. 08. As we stepped out of the hospital building, the sunlight outside was a bit harsh. Rowan remained silent. He walked beside me like a puppet that had lost its soul. Professor Lee's words completely shattered the scientific worldview he had built over the past 30 years. It wasn't until he got into the car that he finally reacted. His hand reached out, trembling, and came to rest on my abdomen. Through the thin fabric, he seemed to be trying to sense the presence of the two little lives within. Rhea, he spoke, his voice gravelly and strained. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't respond. Those words. I'm sorry. We're too little, too late. It cannot bring back my unjustly lost life from a past existence, nor can it restore Clara's brief, sunless lifetime. The car started. Rowan did not head home immediately. He drove to the most expensive maternal and infant nutrition center in the city. Armed with a dietary plan from Professor Lee, he had a nutritionist prepare all the ingredients he would need for the coming week. Then, he went to the pharmacy and bought the most precise digital food scale he could find. His actions spoke louder than words, making his position clear. In this conflict, he chose to stand with Clara and me. We got home. My mother-in-law was sitting on the sofa, her face dark with displeasure. Seeing us come in, arms laden with shopping bags, she immediately stood up. "Where have you been gallivanting off to? Don't you know someone's waiting for you at home? Rowan, just look at what you've bought. Greens and radishes. How nutritious can that possibly be? The turtle soup I've been stewing on the stove is getting cold." As she spoke, she made to go to the kitchen to ladle out the soup. "Mom," Rowan called out to stop her. His voice was as cold as ice. "Pour the soup out." The old woman turned back in disbelief. "What did you say?" I said. "Pour the soup out." Rowan repeated it, word for word. "Starting today, Ria's diet will be personally managed by me. No one is to alter Professor Lee's dietary regimen. If you dare let her have another sip of that greasy soup, we're moving out." The mother-in-law was utterly stunned. She stared at her son as if he were a stranger. Her lips trembled, words on the tip of her tongue, but they were silenced by Rowan's piercing glare. In the end, she could only stomp her foot in frustration, storm back to her room, and slam the door shut with a bang. That ungrateful child, how dare he speak to his own mother like that, all for some outsider, and that Dr. Lee is a quack, I'm sure of it. They're going to starve my precious granddaughter to death. In my mind, Lilith was cursing in furious solidarity with the old woman. I couldn't be bothered to pay it any mind. I walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and set my plan in motion. I opened my phone and played a piece of Mozart's piano music. It's widely considered one of the best types of music for prenatal education. Then, I took out a small portable speaker and placed it on the right side of my abdomen, over where Clara is. The melodious piano notes flowed gently. My hand gently caressed the spot. "So loud. What the hell is that? That sounds awful. Turn it off." Lilith immediately began to protest in agitation. A restless, impatient stirring began in the lower left side of my abdomen. I ignored her. The music played for 10 minutes. I turned off the speaker, then, I switched to a different song, a heavy metal rock track with an intense rhythm, filled with pounding drums and raw screams. This time, I placed the speaker against the left side of my abdomen, right where Lilith was. The deafening music began to blast. Rowan walked in and was startled by the noise. "Ria, what are you doing?" "Prenatal education." I pointed to my belly and gave him a gesture. "I'm experimenting with differentiated instruction." Rowan frowned, looking at me with confusion, but he didn't try to stop me. He stood to the side, quietly observing. He saw it. The moment the rock music kicked in, the churning in my lower left side, it just stopped. Not just stopped, there even came a few excited pulsations, carrying a strange, rhythmic beat. It was as if it were following a drum beat, dancing to disco. "Yes, this is it. Now this has some energy. Way better than that lullaby from before." Louder. Lilith's voice was filled with a sickly excitement. Rowan's pupils contracted once more. A fetus that enjoys listening to heavy metal rock, a fetus that grows restless at the sound of Mozart. This can no longer be explained away as coincidence. It's an inborn nature, an innate longing for chaos and noise, and an instinctive aversion to beauty and harmony. I turned off the music. The room fell silent again. I looked at Rowan. "Rowan, do you believe it? Some children are born angels, while others are born devils." Rowan said nothing. He just walked over and wrapped his arms tightly around me from behind. His chin rested on the top of my head. I could feel his body trembling slightly. 9. The next few days, an eerie silence had fallen over the house. Rowan seemed like a completely different person. He no longer worked overtime, no longer socialized, and came home on time every day. He personally took over preparing all 3 of my daily meals. Using a digital scale, he meticulously followed Professor Lee's recipe, measuring every single ingredient down to the gram: leafy greens, fish, and a small amount of grains. It was so bland, it felt like I was eating grass. My mother-in-law would scowl every day, making snide remarks in the living room, but Rowan remained unmoved. He even learned to ignore all her complaints. "I'm so hungry. Is Rowan trying to starve me to death? And this stupid woman, eating so little every day. Are you a pig?" Lilith's curses became the only background noise in my mind. Her aggressiveness had indeed diminished somewhat due to the hunger. The blows from within her womb grew less frequent and less violent, yet her resentment only swelled with each passing day. I knew she was merely gathering her strength, biding her time, waiting for the next chance to erupt. I didn't take it lightly. Every day, I spent a great deal of time communicating with Clara. I would place my hand on the right side of my abdomen and gently stroke it. I would tell her stories and play soothing music. I told her that mommy is here, her big brother is here, and we're all here to keep her safe. I don't know if she can understand, but every time I do this, I can feel a faint, gentle response, like a little fish blowing bubbles. That's my Clara. She's telling me she's still trying. I was taking an afternoon nap. In my drowsy state, I was startled awake by a strange sound. It wasn't a sharp, piercing shriek like Lilith's. It was more of a sob. "Mom, Mom." The voice was thin and weak, brimming with boundless sorrow. I feel so awful, she's draining my life force again. I'm fading away, my eyes snapped open. That tone of voice, it was just like when she first deceived me. She changed her tactics. She realized that a direct assault would only make Rowan and me more wary. So, she picked up her most trusted weapon once more, pretense, and playing for sympathy. Mom, don't you love me anymore? Just because the doctor said a few things, are you trying to starve me? I'm your eldest daughter. Her voice was like an invisible needle, trying to pierce my heart. If I were still that foolish Rhea from my past life, my heart would have softened by now. I've started to doubt myself, wondering if I was truly in the wrong, but now, my heart is harder than iron or stone. I sat up, my face devoid of expression. I walked into the living room. My mother-in-law was sitting alone on the sofa, wiping away tears. When she saw me, she immediately turned her head away and let out a loud, indignant huff. I ignored her. I walked straight to the fridge and opened the door. The nutritious meals Rowan had prepared for me were all neatly organized in separate containers. I took out a box of sliced apples. Apples. Again, is this woman deaf? I said I feel awful. I want soup. I want meat. A note of barely contained fury crept into Lilith's tearful voice. I picked up a piece of apple and put it in my mouth. Crisp and sweet. Whoa, Mom. I'm in so much pain. Please help me. She started crying again. The cries were piercing, as if she were truly suffering immense pain. Just then, my mother-in-law suddenly bolted up from the sofa. She snatched the apple from my hand and hurled it to the floor. Eat, eat, eat. That's all you ever think about. She pointed her finger right in my face, her voice choked with tears. You heartless woman. Are you trying to starve my precious granddaughter to death? I heard it all from my room today. The baby was crying. She was crying out to me for help. She said she was hungry. She said she was in pain. I froze. Did she hear that? Impossible. I'm the only one who can hear thoughts. Grandma can hear me. Lilith was stunned, too, then, her voice filled with elation. Yes, Grandma's my savior. Granny, hurry. You have to teach this awful woman a lesson. Make her cook me some chicken soup. Seeing that I didn't react, my mother-in-law started crying even harder. Rhea, have you no shame at all? She's your child too. How could you treat her like that? I'm telling you, if you don't get your nutrition back today, I'll die right in front of you. She started throwing a tantrum. This was her usual tactic for dealing with Rowan. The whole hysterical routine, Rowan would always give in. The door opened. Rowan was back. He walked into the living room, took in the tense standoff, and immediately furrowed his brow. Mom, what are you doing now? What am I doing? I'm saving my granddaughter. Seeing her son return, the grandmother felt even more emboldened. She plopped down on the ground and began wailing, slapping her thighs. Rowan, you need to do something about your wife. She's going to starve our child to death. I just heard the baby crying in her belly with my own ears. Begging for food, what a curse. What sin did our Zhou family commit to bring such a viper-tongued woman into our home? Rowan's face instantly darkened with fury. He looked at me, his gaze inscrutable. I knew he didn't believe a word of what his mother had said, but even he found his own mother's tearful tantrum to be an unprecedented challenge. Dad's home. Dad, look, Mom's picking on me, and she's being mean to Grandma too. You tell her off. Make her go cook for me. Lilith was excitedly calling the shots in my head. It was as if she could already see the light of victory. I watched my mother-in-law throwing a tantrum on the floor. I looked at Rowan, who was caught in a dilemma. I could feel the vile creature inside me gloating with satisfaction. A sudden wave of exhaustion washed over me, and how utterly absurd it all was. Slowly, I walked over to stand before my mother-in-law. Under her and Rowan's stunned gazes, slowly, I lowered myself into a crouch. Then I raised my hand. With brutal force, he slapped himself across the face. 10, smack, a sharp, crisp sound echoed through the living room. Everyone was stunned. Rowan's pupils contracted sharply. Even the old woman, wailing on the floor, forgot what to do next. She hit herself. Lilith's voice was filled with shock and bewilderment. Is this idiot out of his mind? My cheek burned with a stinging pain, but I couldn't feel it. I looked at Rowan. Tears, large and heavy, rolled from my eyes. This was no act. It was all the bitterness, pain, and despair of 2 lifetimes, finally breaking free from where they had been buried deep in my heart. In that moment, I found a release. Rowan, I spoke, my voice hoarse and broken. I'm sorry. This is my fault. I shouldn't have poured out Mom's soup. I shouldn't have been disobedient. I'm the worst. As I spoke, I raised my hand, ready to slap myself again. Rowan lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. His grip was strong, squeezing my wrist painfully. Rhea. What are you doing? He snarled at me, his eyes bloodshot. Don't do this. I looked at him and gave a bitter smile. What else can I do? What else could I have done? My mother says I have a heart of stone, that I'd let my own child starve. She says she heard the baby crying. Rowan, I heard it too. I pointed to my own head, my tears flowing even harder. I hear them every single day. One voice tells me to eat more, to desperately nourish myself. Or else the older sister will be killed by the younger. Another voice tells me I mustn't eat. I have to control myself, or else both children will be in danger. I'm going out of my mind. I don't know who to trust. I can't tell what's real and what's in my head. Every time I close my eyes, I see it. Just like the doctor described, a difficult birth, massive hemorrhaging. Both mother and child were lost. I'm scared. I'm so terrified. I grabbed his arm. My nails digging deep into his flesh. I feel like there are two little monsters living inside me. They're fighting. They're forcing me. They're tearing me apart. I screamed at the top of my lungs. She portrayed a pregnant woman, driven to the brink of a mental breakdown by hormones, family conflict, and the fear of the unknown, with absolute perfection. My mother-in-law was completely stunned. She probably expected me to shout back at her and throw a tantrum. It never crossed her mind that I would respond to her accusations in this way, a brutal, almost self-destructive way. Rowan was utterly panicked. He held me tightly, as if cradling a piece of porcelain about to shatter. Stop, Rhea, just stop. It's my fault. This is all my fault. I shouldn't have let you bear all this alone. His voice was thick with remorse and heartache. Is this woman's acting really that good? A suspicious voice from Lilith echoed in my mind. No, she's genuinely scared. She's afraid of me. She's afraid. Dad, comfort her quickly, then get her to give me some tasty treats. Her thinking was both naive and malicious. She simply didn't understand. When a person no longer even cares about their own life, she no longer has any vulnerabilities. I pushed Rowan away. I looked at him, my eyes empty. Let's go to the hospital, I said. Do it now. Let the doctor cut me open. Get them out of here. I don't want it anymore. I don't want anyone anymore. I just want to live. Please, I'm begging you, let me live. My words were like a knife, plunging straight into Rowan's heart. He looked at my pale face, at the hollow, hopeless look in my eyes. He knew. I'm not joking. I can't stay in this house any longer. If I stay here any longer, I'll lose my mind. I'll die. Okay, he nodded, his eyes rimmed with red. Let's go to the hospital. I'll call Professor Lee right now. We're checking into the hospital. Rhea, don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm getting you out of here. He supported me as we stumbled our way out. The mother-in-law struggled to her feet, about to say something. Rowan turned and looked at her with a gaze she had never seen before, bone-chillingly cold. Mom, if anything happens to Rhea or the baby, I will never set foot in this house again. With that, he walked away without so much as a glance in her direction, supporting me. He resolutely led us out of that suffocating prison. 11. The hospital's VIP ward. Pristine white walls, crisp clean sheets, and the sterile scent of antiseptic hanging in the air. Everything here puts me at ease. Rowan completed all the admission paperwork. He didn't go home. He made a temporary bed for himself on the hospital's visitor cot. He insisted on staying by my side around the clock. My mother-in-law called a few times. Rowan just hung up straight away. Finally, he turned his phone off, completely cutting off all outside interference. The hospital, not the hospital again. I hate this place. Lilith's voice was filled with anger and unease. This is all your fault, you idiot. Stop playing the victim. Look what you've done. You've dragged me to this godforsaken hole. What is this slop they're feeding us? It's completely tasteless. I'm starving to death. She's cursing me out in my head every single day. The hospital's nutritional meals are even stricter than what Rowan prepares. Each and every meal is delivered personally by the nutritionist. No oil, no sugar. And barely any salt. Lilith's energy supply has been completely severed. I can feel her fetal movements growing weaker with each passing day, yet from Clara's position, there comes a gentle, vibrant, rhythmic pulsing. Professor Lee comes by for rounds every day. The ultrasound shows that Clara's umbilical blood flow is gradually improving. That tightly constricted lifeline seems to be showing the first faint signs of easing. This is good news, but neither Rowan nor I dare to let our guard down, because I know, a demon like Lilith would never let this go. She is merely biding her time, waiting for the right moment to strike back. That evening, Rowan went to fetch hot water for me. I was left alone in the hospital room. I closed my eyes, savoring the rare moment of peace. Suddenly, a sharp, excruciating cramp, without any warning, tore through the depths of my lower abdomen. It felt as if someone was taking a red-hot iron poker and violently twisting my insides. The pain instantly doubled me over. A cold sweat broke out, drenching my forehead and back. You fool. Did you really think you'd be safe in a hospital? Lilith's voice was icy and venomous. It was thick with the pleasure of revenge. If I'm going down, you're coming with me. I'm going to make you hurt. I'm going to make you suffer. I'm going to show you who's really in charge here. She began to torment me in ways I could never have anticipated. A direct hit to my body, my nerves. The pain came and went in an instant. By the time Rowan returned with the hot water, I'm back to normal now. It's just that my face is as pale as a sheet. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? He asked immediately, his voice tense. It's nothing. I shook my head. Maybe I'm a little hungry. I couldn't tell him. I have no proof. From a doctor's perspective, any sudden pain in the third trimester is perfectly normal. If I said my baby was deliberately torturing me, they would just think my mental state had deteriorated further. Yes, that's it. You can't say a thing. You'll just have to bear it alone. Lilith smiled triumphantly. All right, let's play a more interesting game. The moment she finished speaking, a wave of intense nausea surged up my throat. I covered my mouth and rushed into the bathroom, hunched over the toilet. I was racked by a fit of dry, gut-wrenching heaves. Nothing came up. My stomach was completely empty, yet that churning, violent sensation felt like it was scorching a hole straight through my esophagus. Rowan followed me in, anxiously patting my back. Rhea, are you okay? I rinsed my mouth and looked up. In the mirror, my eyes were bloodshot and I looked utterly wretched. Having fun, Mom. Lilith's voice was like the whisper of a devil. This is just the appetizer. Whenever I'm unhappy, I can make your life a living hell, anytime, anywhere. Leaning against the wall, I slowly made my way back to the hospital bed. Rowan immediately pressed the call button. The doctor on duty arrived promptly. I was given a series of tests. They took my blood pressure, checked the fetal heartbeat, and drew blood. The results showed that everything was normal. It could be due to pregnancy symptoms. Or it might be caused by stress. The doctor gave an ambiguous conclusion. Get plenty of rest and try to relax. The doctor left. Rowan sat by my bedside, holding my hand tightly. His brow was furrowed in a deep knot. Rhea, tell me. He looked at me, his expression deadly serious. Is something wrong again? Is she at it again? He didn't finish the sentence, but he knew, and I knew. We were talking about the same person. I looked into his worried eyes. I knew I couldn't bear it alone any longer. I needed him to see, truly and viscerally, the nature of the monster we were up against. I took a deep breath. Rowan, turn on your phone's voice recorder. From this moment on, leave it running for 24 hours. Don't turn it off. You might just hear something unexpected. 12. Though puzzled, Rowan complied. He activated the recording function on his phone and placed it on the nightstand, an inconspicuous corner, recording this. Lilith's voice carried a hint of disdain. What is this idiot trying to do? Does she really think a recording can capture my voice? How laughably naive. Of course, she didn't know. It wasn't her voice I wanted to record. It was my own. It's my reaction, my pain, and my soliloquy. The next 2 days, Lilith's torment grew more intense. It was as if she had found a fascinating new toy. She tirelessly attacked me in every way imaginable. Sometimes, it was a sudden, needle-sharp sting. Sometimes, it's a sudden, suffocating dizziness that comes without warning. Sometimes, it's a violent leg cramp in the dead of night, so painful it jolts you awake. With every attack, she would gleefully provide a live commentary inside my mind, and I, the moment she opens her mouth, will respond in the faintest whisper, audible only to the recorder. My reply will come, you fool, I'm going to make your head feel like it's about to explode. The moment her words trailed off, I immediately clutched my head, letting out a stifled groan, muttering incoherently, stop, please stop, my head is killing me. Let's see if you dare disobey again. I'll make your stomach twist into knots right now. I immediately curled up, pleading weakly into the empty air. Please, stop, I won't dare do it again. Lovely weather today. How about we let you experience the feeling of falling out of bed? A wave of dizziness washed over me, making the world spin. Instinctively, I grabbed the bed rail and held on for dear life, using every ounce of strength to keep from falling. At the same time, I cried out in terror, no, don't push me, in Rowan's absence, and so I was, all alone, in the hospital room. One eerie monologue after another played out. My voice was faint, indistinct, to the nurses and others. It sounded like nothing more than the unconscious moans and delirious murmurs of a pregnant woman, but that phone recorded every last detail with perfect, chilling accuracy. Day 3. Rowan had to go to the office to deal with some urgent matters. Before leaving, he felt a bit uneasy. Rhea, I'll be back soon. Call me right away if anything comes up. I gave him a smile. Don't worry. After he left, I lay in bed. I knew it. The time when Lilith is most active is about to come. That nuisance of a man is finally gone. Foolish woman, let's have some real fun. I heard from the nurse that a new flower has bloomed in the garden downstairs. It's called datura. I've heard that kind of flower is poisonous. Just imagine, if you were to slip and fall from up here, right into that flower bed, would that make it 1 body, or 3 lives? Her words slithered into my ear like an icy serpent. My heart clenched. She actually wanted to kill me. She wanted me to die, and take her and Clara with me. I immediately pressed the call button by the bed, trying to call for help. Too late. A wave of dizziness, more intense than any before, seized me. The ceiling, the walls, the windows, everything before my eyes began to spin wildly. My body slid from the bed, completely beyond my control. I crashed onto the floor, struggling. I crawled towards the door. I have to get out of here. I need to find someone. Stop struggling. It's no use. Your body is mine to command now. Lilith's voice was laced with triumphant satisfaction. My hand had just touched the doorknob, yet, my body suddenly stood up on its own. My feet began to move in stiff, deliberate steps. They carried me toward the balcony. I watched my own body. It walked toward the open balcony, devoid of any safety net. My consciousness was utterly lucid, yet, I could not control a single one of my movements. I've become a prisoner within my own body, a mere spectator. Jump. Lilith issued her final command in my mind. Just jump, and it will all be over. You stupid, disobedient body can finally disappear. My foot was already over the balcony railing. The wind rustled my hospital gown. Below lay the hard, unyielding concrete, and that patch of datura flowers, blooming in their full, sinister glory. Death was within arm's reach. Clara, I'm sorry, Mom, I think I'm going to fail again. Just as my other foot was about to step out, bang, the door to the hospital room was kicked open. Rowan burst inside. His eyes went red the instant he saw the scene on the balcony. Rhea, he let out a guttural roar, like an enraged lion. He lunged at me. In the split second before I fell, he seized my arm in a death grip. He dragged me back from the brink of death. 13. I was held tightly in Rowan's arms. His chest heaved violently, his heart hammering against my back like a drum. Fear, lingering dread, and overwhelming rage turned within him. Damn that man. How dare you ruin my plans? So close. That foolish woman was this close to going over the edge. Lilith's voice screamed maniacally in my mind, a furious roar at her ruined plans. I went limp in Rowan's arms, gasping for air in ragged, desperate breaths. My entire body was trembling, not from the cold, but from having just brushed shoulders with death itself. Rhea, Rhea. Rowan's voice trembled in my ear as he called my name over and over. As if to confirm I was still alive, I raised my hand, mustering all my strength, and pointed toward the nightstand. My phone. I uttered 2 words weakly. The recording. Listen. Rowan snapped back to reality. He carried me back to bed, wrapped me tightly in the blanket, then lunged at the nightstand like a panther and snatched the phone that had been recording all along. He took out his earphones, plugged them in, and put them on. He needed to block out all distractions to listen to the hell recorded within. The hell that belonged to me. The hospital room was quiet. I could see the color draining from Rowan's face, moment by moment, as the recording played, his brows furrowed deeper, his lips pressed into a thin, rigid line. He heard it. He heard my strange, fragmented muttering after he left. Stop it. My head hurts. Please, stop. Don't push me. That cry of "don't push me" was the exclamation I let out as my body slid uncontrollably off the bed, Rowan's hand clenched into a fist, the veins standing out on the back of it. The recording continues. My faint yet clear voice comes from within. You want me to jump? A single body, 3 lives. No, I don't want to. Help. Someone help me. My body. I can't move. The balcony. No. On the recording, my final voice is a sob, choked with utter helplessness and despair. Then, the thunderous crash of a door being kicked in, followed by his own raw, guttural roar. Rhea. End of recording. Rowan took off his headphones. He didn't look at me. His gaze fell upon my heavily swollen belly. Gone from his gaze was any trace of a father's warmth or hope. All that remained was a cold, bone-chilling frost, and a kind of mad, all-consuming bloodlust. He finally understood. I am not having a breakdown. I am not acting. Everything I've been through is real. In a realm beyond his comprehension, a demon has taken possession of my wife's body and is trying to kill my entire family. What's with that look in his eyes? Lilith sensed the danger too. What is he trying to do? There's something off about this man. Rowan looked up and met my gaze. His eyes were frighteningly red. He walked to the bedside, slowly knelt down, and took my hand. His palm was cold and clammy. Rhea, he spoke, his voice raspy as if scraped by sandpaper. I believe you. I believe all of it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to face this alone for so long. The floodgates finally opened, and my tears poured out. It wasn't out of self-pity. It was because, in this war I had been fighting alone. I had finally found an ally I could trust with my life. 14. The next day, Rowan and I went back to Professor Lee's office. Overnight, my husband's entire demeanor underwent a sea change. There was no longer a trace of hesitation or inner conflict in him. He was like a sword drawn from its scabbard, cold, sharp, and utterly focused. He didn't mention the recording, nor did he speak of things that defied scientific explanation. He simply relayed my condition to Professor Lee in terms the medical field could understand. Professor Lee, my wife's condition is highly unstable. She is exhibiting severe persecutory delusions, along with self-harm and suicidal behaviors. All of her actions point to one conclusion. She believes her unborn first daughter, T1, is controlling and harming her. Yesterday, she almost jumped from the balcony of her hospital room. Rowan's voice was devoid of any emotion. As if he were reading a clinical report, yet, with every word, Professor Lee's expression grew more and more grave. I need objective evidence. Professor Lee adjusted his glasses. I need to know if there is a direct, real-time correlation between T1's fetal movements and my wife's mental state. I request a real-time, highest precision 4D ultrasound scan for her. I want you to see for yourself what that child is doing. Professor Lee fell silent for a long while. Finally, he gave a slow nod. I'll take care of it. Half an hour later, I was back on that familiar examination table. The cold instrument made contact with my skin. On the large HD screen, the images of 2 little lives came into clear view. Clara was just as before, curled up quietly in the corner like a well-behaved little angel, and Lilith, she seemed to sense something. She shifted restlessly in the womb, like a trapped animal. This place again. These cold, ghostly things again. What on earth are you trying to do? Her inner voice was seething with irritation. Rowan was standing right there in front of the screen, next to Professor Lee. He shot me a look. I understand. The plan is now in motion. I reached out and gently placed my hand on the right side of my abdomen, over Clara. My voice was soft, dripping with tenderness. Clara, my darling, listen, sweetheart, Mommy is talking to you. Don't be afraid. Mommy and Daddy will protect you. You are our precious little angel, an angel. She's not worthy of the title, you foolish woman. How dare you praise that useless brat right in front of me? Have you forgotten the lesson from yesterday already? Lilith was instantly enraged. On the screen, the figure representing her jolted into motion. She thrust her foot out, kicking viciously in Clara's direction. Clara's small frame shuddered violently from the impact. Rowan's fist clenched instantly. Professor Lee's brow furrowed as well. I didn't stop. I kept speaking to Clara in the gentlest of voices. I hummed a lullaby for her, telling her how beautiful the world outside was. I said that when she's born, her daddy will buy her the most beautiful princess dress, and her mommy will take her to the amusement park. Every word I spoke was like a whip, lashing viciously across Lilith's nerves. Shut up, shut up, shut up, you biased old fool. All of that is mine. The princess dress is mine. The amusement park is mine too. You and Daddy can only love me, no one else. That little good-for-nothing, she deserves to die. Her rage had reached its boiling point. Mere punches and kicks were no longer enough for her. She whirled around. She turned her face directly toward the probe. The high-definition 4D ultrasound captured her features with perfect clarity. On the screen, a face that belonged to an infant, one that should have been innocent. At this moment, however, twisted by extreme rage and jealousy, it had contorted into a hideous, ugly, demonic expression. Her mouth was agape, as if in a silent scream, even through the belly. Those tightly shut eyes radiated a bone-chilling, venomous hatred. The examination room was instantly plunged into a deathly silence. The nurse operating the instrument instinctively covered her mouth. Letting out a stifled gasp, Rowan's body went rigid, frozen like a stone statue. Professor Lee, a top-tier expert who had seen every kind of intractable case imaginable, his hands were trembling ever so slightly. He stared at the monstrous, inhuman face on the screen. He forced the words out, one by one, through clenched teeth. Record all of this. Get everything on tape. 15. In Professor Lee's office. The massive display screen was playing that recording on a loop, that grotesque, contorted face was enlarged and frozen, again and again. Each time, it delivered a powerful visual shock and a tremor from the depths of the soul. Professor Lee switched off the video. He took off his glasses and wearily rubbed the bridge of his nose. The office was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. A long moment passed. He put his glasses back on and looked at us. His eyes held a gravity and resolve never seen before. Mr. Rowan. Mrs. Rhea. As a doctor, everything I say must be grounded in science. From a scientific perspective, fetus T1, your eldest daughter, is exhibiting an extremely rare and highly aggressive pathological condition. Her very existence poses the most direct and grave threat to the life of fetus T2 and the mother. He paused, as if searching for the most precise words. In 30 years of practice, I have never seen a case like this. This falls completely outside the scope of our current medical understanding, but the data doesn't lie, and the images don't lie. My conclusion is this. Professor Lee looked at us, enunciating each word with absolute clarity. The pregnancy must be terminated, immediately. That's exactly what Rowan and I were hoping to hear. Professor, what are you suggesting? Rowan pressed. To perform a cesarean section ahead of schedule. Given the current gestational age, both babies are considered premature, especially T2, due to chronic malnutrition. Will require immediate admission to the neonatal intensive care unit, NICU. After birth, there will be risks. However, Professor Lee's tone brooked no argument. This is the only way to save her life and Mrs. Rhea's. Every extra day she spends in the womb increases the danger to both of you. I recommend scheduling the surgery for 32 weeks, which is in 2 weeks. This is the absolute minimum safety threshold for T2's survival. Rowan and I exchanged a look. We both saw the same resolve in each other's eyes. We agree, Rowan said. I leave everything in your hands, Professor. And so, it was settled. The date of the final battle was marked on the calendar, a vivid red circle. Stepping out of Professor Lee's office, the first thing Rowan did was call her grandmother. The moment the call connected, her grandmother's booming voice came through. Rowan, so you finally decided to call. How's that crazy wife of yours? Is she eating yet? Rowan's face was completely expressionless. Mom, pack your things, you're coming back home today. Silence hung on the other end of the line. A few seconds later, a disbelieving shriek came from the mother-in-law. What did you say? You want me to go back to the countryside? You ungrateful son. Are you kicking me out for that woman? Rhea needs a perfectly quiet environment for her pregnancy. Rowan's voice was as cold as ice. This is no place for you. I'm not leaving. This is my home. Why should I go? The old woman began to throw a tantrum. Rowan, I've sent you that video, Rowan said flatly. Take a good look at what your precious granddaughter really looks like. With that, he hung up the phone, blocked, powered off, all in one smooth motion. He severed the last possible external factor that could disturb us. In the hospital room, only the two of us remained. We stared at the red circle on the calendar. Neither of us saying a word. 2 weeks, 14 days. This was the final hurdle for Clara and me. If we can just get through this, we'll be reborn. Surgery, a C-section. Lilith's voice echoed faintly in my mind. She knows now, too, trying to get me out early, want that little waste of space to live. Her voice was no longer furious, nor was it a curse. It was a kind of eerie, unsettling calm. Rowan, Rhea, you think you've won. You think removing me will end this. Naive. She let out a soft, quiet laugh. That laugh was like a poisoned ice pick, driving straight into my marrow. Let me tell you something. The operating table was not her rebirth. It was the guillotine for you, mother and daughter. 16. Rowan never answered her mother-in-law's calls again, but he had underestimated a mother's obsession. 2 days later, the hospital room door was flung open with tremendous force. Like a lioness, the mother-in-law charged in, her eyes blazing red. Trailing behind her were a few relatives whose names I couldn't recall. Every face wore an accusatory, confrontational expression. Rhea, my mother-in-law's target was clear. She made a beeline straight for my hospital bed. Rowan stepped forward, placing himself like a solid wall between her and me. Mom, what are you doing here? His voice was cold and devoid of warmth. What am I doing here? I'm here to see my son, the one who's been bewitched by that vixen. My mother-in-law jabbed a finger in Rowan's face, screaming at her, and my poor eldest granddaughter. She then turned to me, her eyes filled with pure hatred. You vile woman, what on earth did you show Rowan? I asked around, and that kind of video can easily be faked. You'd use such a despicable trick to harm my granddaughter. You have a heart of stone. Grandma's here. Grandma's come to save me. Lilith's voice, silent for 2 days, suddenly echoed in my mind, brimming with the wild joy of having narrowly escaped disaster. Granny, quick, shut that woman's mouth for good. Let her learn who truly rules the Joe household. I leaned against the headboard, watching the whole farce unfold with cold detachment. The last shred of patience vanished from Rowan's face. Security. He pulled out his phone and was about to make a call. Don't you dare. The old woman snatched the phone from his hand and smashed it violently on the ground. The phone screen shattered instantly. Rowan, I'm putting my foot down right here, right now. If you still consider me your mother, you will make this woman apologize to my granddaughter immediately. Then you're going home to make up for everything you've neglected. Otherwise, I might as well have never had a son. The relatives behind her also began chiming in, all talking at once. That's right, Rowan. Your mother raised you with so much hardship. How could you upset your own mother like this? All for an outsider. It's normal for a woman to have all sorts of worries when she's pregnant. Just humor her a bit more. That's all there is to it. Making a scene all the way at the hospital. How embarrassing. These voices buzzed in my ears like a swarm of flies. I saw Rowan's fist, clenched so tight his knuckles cracked. His pent-up rage was on the verge of erupting. I shook my head at him, then I turned my gaze to my mother-in-law. Mom, I spoke, my voice calm. The video Rowan showed you is real. That child, my eldest daughter, Lilith, she wants to kill me. She wants to kill her sister, Clara, too. She's not a normal child. She's a monster. My words brought an instant, dead silence to the entire hospital room. My mother-in-law probably never expected me to say something like that, so bluntly and so calmly. A few seconds later, she erupted into even more shrill screams and curses. You're talking nonsense. You're insane. You're the one who's lost it. You're the monster here. You're jealous. You're just jealous that my eldest granddaughter is healthier than the younger one. Rowan, did you hear that? She admitted it. She just admitted she wants to harm the child. Rowan ignored her shouting. He bent down and picked up the phone with the cracked screen from the floor. He swiped his finger across it a few times. Thankfully, it still worked. He found a file. Then He held the phone out in front of the old woman. He pressed the play button. Let it out. Let your voice be heard. The old woman was still struggling. I want you to listen to something. Rowan's voice was cold and hard as iron. You wanted to know what your daughter-in-law went through, didn't you? Listen. The recording captured my muffled, agonized moans, and then, those fragmented, dreamlike mutterings to myself. Stop. Please stop reading. My head hurts so much. I'm begging you, stop. I'll never do it again. Don't push me. The old woman's expression began to change. The anger on her face was gradually replaced by confusion and unease. The recording continued. Those were my desperate cries for help, made as Lilith controlled me and led me toward the balcony. You want me to jump? A single body, 3 lives. No, I don't want to. Help. Someone. Please help me. My body. I can't move. The balcony. No. Finally, there was the loud, violent sound of the door being kicked in, that heart-wrenching, agonized scream from Rowan, Rhea. The recording ended. A deathly silence fell over the hospital room. The relatives who had come along to make trouble wore expressions of utter embarrassment and terror. Instinctively taking a step back, the mother-in-law stood there, stunned. It was as if all the strength had been drained from her body. She stared at Rowan, her lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Rowan took his phone back. He looked at his mother, and in his eyes, there was no trace of familial affection left. There was only an endless, icy disappointment. Mom, so, you still want me to come home, and you still want Rhea to apologize to your precious granddaughter. You still expect me to just go along with her. Each of his questions landed like a slap across the mother-in-law's face. The old woman swayed, nearly losing her balance. This man is insane. He actually recorded all of this, Grandma. Don't believe him, it's all fake. That woman is an actress. Lilith was still screaming frantically in my mind, making one last desperate attempt, but it was no use. Rowan turned around and addressed the relatives. My apologies, elders, for the unseemly spectacle you witnessed today. I know it's best to keep family matters private, but I can't keep this hidden any longer. My wife's life is hanging by a thread. She is risking her own life to protect my other child. From this day forward, if anyone dares to come here and says a single word to upset her, that's me, Rowan, your sworn enemy for life. With that, he opened the door to the hospital room. He made a gesture that said, after you, as if granted a royal pardon. Those relatives fled the room in a panic. In the end, only the old woman remained. She stood there, like a statue that had lost its soul. In the end, she said nothing. Hunched over, she staggered out. Rowan closed the door. Finally, peace and quiet. He walked over and took my hand. I'm sorry, Rhea. I promise, it will never happen again. I looked at him and shook my head gently. Rowan, thank you. 10 days left until the surgery. These 10 days have been eerily calm. Lilith has fallen completely silent. Her curses had ceased. Her attacks had stopped. And even her inner voice had grown quiet. It was as if she had truly fallen into a slumber, weakened by hunger. But I knew better. The calm before the storm is always the most profound. She is gathering her strength to deliver the most lethal blow to me and Clara on the operating table. I did not let my guard down. I devoted all my time and energy to establishing a connection with Clara. I play Mozart for her every day. I read her Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. I tell her, over and over again, Clara, don't be afraid. Mommy's here. Mommy loves you. I don't know if she can hear me. All I can feel is the response from the right side of my belly when I touch it. And it seems to grow clearer with each passing day. It began with little fish blowing bubbles. Then, it felt like a kitten's paw, gently kneading my belly. It was a tender, affectionate kind of interaction. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, I was standing in a warm, golden light. A little girl in a white gauze dress came running towards me on her short little legs. She bore a striking resemblance to Rowan. She ran up to me, tilted her little face up, and stretched out her short arms. Mommy, up. Her voice was soft and gentle. It was as sweet as cotton candy. I knelt down and held her tightly in my arms. Are you, Clara? I asked, my voice trembling. In my arms, she nodded emphatically. Mommy. Her tiny hand touched my cheek. The bad sister is coming. She's going to bleed me. So much blood. Mommy, I'm scared. My heart sank. I jolted awake from the dream. A cold sweat broke out all over my body. Instinctively, I looked at the digital clock on the bedside table. 3 o'clock in the morning. That's when it happened. A sudden, violent abdominal pain struck without warning. It wasn't a stabbing pain, nor a cramping one. It was a deep, tearing, dragging agony. Contractions. You fool. Did you really think you could wait 2 weeks? Lilith's venomous voice exploded in my mind once more. After all this time, I can't wait any longer. Tonight is the night you all die. I'll make sure you all die right outside this operating room. She's trying to force me into premature labor. The excruciating pain was so intense, I could barely breathe. With every last ounce of strength, I pressed the call button by the bed. Rowan jolted awake. And seeing me in agony, his face instantly went pale. Rhea. What's wrong? Contractions. She's trying to force me into early labor. My words came out in broken, halting gasps. The nurses and doctors rushed in immediately. Quick, get her to the delivery room. The mother is already 2 centimeters dilated. The situation is critical. Notify Professor Lee at once. The entire ward instantly descended into chaos. I was swiftly wheeled onto a gurney. The stark, pale lights of the corridor flashed past my eyes. Rowan clutched my hand tightly. Running alongside the bed, Rhea, hold on, you have to hold on. His voice was thick with fear. It's no use, no one can save you now. If that little wretch doesn't come out tonight, you're a dead man too. Lilith's triumphant laughter echoed inside my mind. Pain washed over me in relentless, crashing waves. My consciousness began to fade. No, I can't fall. If I fall, Clara will truly have no hope left. Clara, my Clara, in my heart. I was screaming her name with the last of my strength. I focused every ounce of my will on the right side of my abdomen. I remembered her lovely face from my dream, her soft, gentle voice. Clara, help Mommy. Mommy needs you. Suddenly, just as the pain was about to consume me, a faint, yet incredibly distinct warmth began to spread from the right side of my abdomen, slowly flowing through my entire body. That warmth was like a gentle hand, soothing my uterus which had been clenched tight in agony. The heavy, tearing sensation miraculously began to subside. What's going on? Lilith's laughter cut off abruptly. What is this little wretch doing? My power, why? Her voice was filled with stunned disbelief. Then, immediately after, a thin, timid, yet unshakably resolute voice. For the first time, it rang out with perfect clarity in my mind. Mom, don't be afraid. Clara, I'll protect you. 18, it's Clara. It's my Clara. She's responding to me. She's using her meager strength to fend off Lilith's assault. That warm current was her power, a warm, life-filled energy. The complete opposite of Lilith's cold, sinister power. The intensity of the contractions is decreasing. The doctor monitoring the instruments let out a cry of disbelief. How is that possible? It was so intense just a moment ago. Professor Lee had rushed over and was staring at the curves on the monitor, his brow furrowed. The mother's blood pressure and heart rate are stabilizing. A miracle. This is nothing short of a medical miracle. I'm the only one who knows. This is no miracle. It's my daughter, protecting me. Impossible, absolutely impossible. This useless wretch. How could she possibly have any strength? Stop, I said stop. In my mind, Lilith let out a furious roar. She intensified her assault. A wave of pain began to throb in my abdomen once more. But this time, it was different from before. Each time Lilith's assault struck, Clara's warm power would surge forth instantly, enveloping and dissolving that agony. It was like a battle between light and darkness. My womb became their battlefield. I was no longer a helpless victim. I became Clara's ally. I closed my eyes, channeling all my love and every thought to the tiny life nestled on the right side of my abdomen. You can do this, Clara. Mommy's right here with you. The pain, held in a tense balance between two opposing forces, remained within a bearable threshold. My mind was crystal clear. Professor Lee made a decisive call. We can't wait any longer. Prepare for surgery immediately. The mother's condition is stable for now. This is our only chance. I was wheeled straight into the operating room. Rowan was stopped at the door. He held onto my hand and wouldn't let go. Rhea, I'll wait for you to come out. You and Clara. I'll wait for both of you to come out together. His eyes were red-rimmed, his voice choked with emotion. I gave him a nod. Don't worry. The operating room door slowly closed. It shut out Rowan's anxious gaze. The cold, harsh light shone on my face. The anesthesiologist began administering the spinal anesthesia. I gradually lost all sensation in the lower half of my body. Surgery. Do you really think this means you've won? Rhea, Rowan, you've sorely underestimated me. Lilith's voice grew calm once more, laced with venom. The failure of the premature plan did not discourage her. On the contrary, it made her next scheme seem all the more sinister and terrifying. Do you know what the biggest fear is with a C-section? She asked in a low, somber voice. It's massive hemorrhage, the kind of massive hemorrhage where the blood bank can't supply blood fast enough. My heart gave a violent lurch. There's a major artery in the wall of your uterus. That's a very useful thing to have. The moment the doctor makes the incision, I'll use all my strength to rupture it. The blood would gush out like a fountain. The doctors would be scrambling, and they'd prioritize saving you, the mother, at that point. Who would have time to care about that little thing already starved of oxygen? She would die inside you, suffocated, and you, too, will die on this operating table due to excessive blood loss. Rhea, see, I'm so kind. I'll let you and your mother die together. On the road to the afterlife, you'll have each other. Her words, like the most venomous curse, wormed their way into my ears. So this was her final plan all along. Mutual destruction. No, not mutual destruction. She seems to have a way of surviving a disaster like this. The doctors are ready. Professor Lee is performing the operation himself. He stood by my side and gave me an encouraging look. Don't be afraid. We're all here with you. A blue sterile drape blocked my view. I couldn't see what was happening below, but I could feel it. The scalpel was about to cut into my skin. I have to tell him. I have to tell Professor Lee about the plan. But how do I even say it, that my daughter, in my own mind, is giving me a live broadcast of her murder plan? They'll just give me a sedative shot that would play right into Lilith's hands. What do I do? What am I supposed to do, Mom? Clara's voice sounded once more. Don't be afraid. Use your mind. Tell Daddy, a thought, tell Daddy. My eyes snapped open. I stared up at the massive, circular shadowless lamp on the operating room ceiling. Its lampshade was polished to a mirror-like sheen. It clearly reflected the entire scene of the operating room, and in that reflection was the anxious figure standing outside the observation window. Rowan, he hasn't left. He's right outside, watching me. I focus all of my energy. I stared at his reflection in the shadowless lamp, with all the strength I could muster. I screamed inside my mind, Rowan, massive hemorrhage, she's going to rupture my aorta, quick, get Professor Lee, get the plasma ready, and the hemostats, hurry, 19, my consciousness, like a red-hot awl, drove with all its might towards the reflection in the shadowless lamp, Rowan, massive hemorrhage, the aorta. I don't know if that silent, desperate cry in my mind could ever pierce through that thick pane of glass. All I know is, it's my only hope. Rowan stood outside the observation window, his face pressed hard against the glass, his eyes fixed unwaveringly on the operating table. He saw my lips moving soundlessly. He saw the desperate, final plea for help in my eyes. An invisible thread seemed to instantly connect us. He stumbled back a step, the color draining from his face. A vast, concrete terror seized him, not a fear of the unknown, but of a single, specific word, blood. He remembered every single one of my warnings, every prophecy. He remembered that recording that sent a chill to his very soul. All his doubts vanished. Bang! He slammed his fist against the observation window with brutal force. Professor Lee, he let out a bestial roar. Massive hemorrhage. She's going to cause a massive hemorrhage. Get the plasma ready, now. The nurses and doctors in the operating room were startled by the sudden roar. They looked in confusion at the frantic man outside the window. The family member is distraught. Get him out of here. A young doctor said with a frown. No. Professor Lee looked up, and his gaze met mine across the crowd. He saw the certainty in my eyes. In that moment, the man who had practiced medicine for 30 years cast aside all his science and reason. He chose to trust the dying intuition of a mother in labor. Do as he says. Professor Lee's voice, calm and resolute, echoed throughout the operating room. Emergency blood supply from the blood bank. Prepare all sizes of arterial clamps, pressure infusion. Have epinephrine ready. Orders were issued one after another, and the entire team immediately sprang into high gear. Idiot, does he think shouting a few commands is enough to save your lives? Too late. Lilith's voice was dripping with contempt. The very instant Professor Lee's scalpel sliced through the final layer of my abdominal wall. Now, welcome to hell. Lilith made her move, a frigid force, like a precision bomb, slammed into the blood vessel deep within my womb. I felt something inside my body rupture violently. It's ruptured. Professor Lee let out a sharp cry of alarm. Bright red blood gushed forth like a breached dam, erupting in an instant. The surgical field was instantly dyed a deep crimson. On the monitor, my blood pressure began to plummet. A piercing alarm blared throughout the operating room. A shadow of death fell over everyone present. See that, Rhea? This is what becomes of you. Your blood will run dry. That little wretch will suffocate, and I will be reborn within your corpse. Lilith's voice was filled with the triumph of a victor. My consciousness begins to fade. My body is growing colder. Am I going to die? Clara, my Clara. Just as I was about to be swallowed by the darkness, a familiar warmth surged forth once more from the right side of my abdomen. It was stronger and warmer than ever before, like a tiny sun rising within my frozen body. It shielded my heart. It anchored the last, fading shred of my consciousness. You, for the first time. A note of terror crept into Lilith's voice. How can you still have the strength? Clara did not answer her. She was buying time for me, and for herself. With every last ounce of her energy, my vision is clearing. We found the breach, arterial clamp, gauze, apply pressure to stop the bleeding. Thanks to their thorough preparation, Professor Lee's team worked with complete composure. They moved with the precision and efficiency of a well-oiled machine. A dozen hemostats clamped down on the bleeding points with pinpoint accuracy. The gushing torrent of blood was forcibly stemmed. Blood pressure is stabilizing. The patient is stable. Quick, get the baby out. Without a moment's hesitation, Professor Lee's hand reached steadily into my abdominal cavity. The first thing he touched was the tiny form curled up in the corner. With the utmost care, he cradled her in his hands. It was a tiny baby girl. Her skin had a bluish-purple tinge from lack of oxygen. She didn't cry, but merely opened her eyes, weak and frail. Her eyes were as clear as a mountain spring. She gazed at the world with a hint of curiosity. It's a girl. Quick, take her to the NICU. The nurse took her and rushed out of the operating room. Professor Lee then brought out another child, Lilith. She was much older and sturdier than Clara. Her skin was rosy and brimming with vitality, yet she did not cry. She was held upside down. Pulled from the warmth of the womb, her tightly shut eyes snapped open. In them, there was none of a newborn's confusion, nothing but venom, rage, and bitter resentment. How could this happen? How are you still alive, Rhea, Rowan, and that useless little runt? I won't let you get away with this. I will never forgive you for this. In my mind, she let out one final, venomous roar. Perhaps her rage had reached its absolute peak. From her tiny mouth, which should have let out a loud cry, came a low, guttural sound, utterly alien to a human infant. It was a bestial, a savage roar. 20. When I came to, I was already in the VIP care unit. Various machines surrounded me, emitting a steady beeping and whirring. Rowan was slumped by my bedside, clutching my hand tightly. A shadow of stubble darkened his jaw. He looked utterly exhausted and worn. Sensing my movement, his head jerked up, seeing my eyes open. His own instantly welled up. Rhea, he spoke, his voice a hoarse, broken rasp. You're awake. You're finally awake. He pressed my hand against his cheek. Warm tears fell onto the back of my hand. This strong man, who had never shed a single tear in front of me, now, he was weeping like a child. My child. I asked weakly, how is Clara? She's fine. Rowan quickly wiped away her tears and forced a smile for me. She's in the NICU. Professor Lee says she's a little miracle, even though she was premature and very small. Her vital signs are remarkably strong. After a little more observation, she'll be able to come out. I breathed a sigh of relief. My Clara, she's alive. And the other one? I asked. At the mention of Lilith, the smile vanished from Rowan's face. His gaze grew complex and icy. She's alive too. The body is perfectly healthy, even sturdier than a full-term baby, but, he paused, she's strange, Rhea, she doesn't cry, doesn't fuss, she just lies there with her eyes open, watching everyone who comes near. That gaze, it wasn't like a baby's, it was more like, he didn't finish the sentence, but I knew exactly what he meant, like a cold-blooded predator sizing up its prey. Professor Lee walked into the room. Seeing that I was awake, a look of relief and joy spread across his face. Madam, you have performed a miracle of life, he said to me. You lost over 4,000 milliliters of blood. Most people would have. Your will to survive is the strongest I've ever seen. And Mr. Rowan, Professor Lee looked at Rowan. That timely warning of yours saved 3 lives, your wife's and your child's. I can't explain it scientifically, how you knew that massive hemorrhage was coming, but the fact is, your intuition was terrifyingly accurate. Rowan did not acknowledge the compliment. He looked at Professor Lee and asked a question. Professor, did you all hear that? That scream when Lilith was born? Professor Lee's expression instantly turned grave. He gave a slow, solemn nod. We heard it. Every medical professional present heard it. That was not a cry. We have conducted a comprehensive examination of her vocal cords and phonatory system. There are no abnormalities whatsoever. In other words, physiologically, she was perfectly capable of producing a normal cry, but she didn't. Rowan took a small voice recorder from inside his coat. It wasn't the phone that had been smashed earlier, but a new one. Professor, after my wife was wheeled into the operating room, I stuck this to the glass of the observation window. I thought it might record something. I think you should hear this. He pressed play. From the recorder first came the chaotic din of the operating room, a cacophony of machinery and voices, then, Rowan's own roar as he smashed the window, the sound of Professor Lee giving a decisive command. Everything was exactly as we had experienced, that is, until the moment Lilith was extracted. On the recording, her low, strange roar was the first thing we heard. Right after that, the very instant the roar subsided, a child's voice, chillingly clear and ghostly, drifted out from the recorder. I will make you pay for this. The voice was sharp, venomous, and brimming with a malice not of this world. Professor Lee's body jolted violently, the color drained from his face at a terrifying speed. He stared fixedly at the voice recorder, as if a demon from hell were trapped inside it. Rowan switched off the recording. He looked at Professor Lee. Professor, do you believe me now? Just what is it that my wife has been facing all this time? Professor Lee remained silent. He slumped into the chair. Utterly devastated, the robust, scientific worldview he had built over 30 years of his career, at this very moment, was utterly shattered by this recording from another dimension. He knew, what he delivered might not have been a child, but rather, something wearing human skin, a devil. 21, 3 days later, a confidential consultation, led by Professor Lee and convening the province's top experts in pediatrics, neurology, and psychiatry, was held in the hospital's conference room. The subject of this consultation was Lilith, that 4D ultrasound video of the ghostly face, that audio recording from the operating room, capturing inhuman screams and vicious curses, played over and over again. The entire meeting room fell deathly silent. Every expert's face was etched with unconcealable shock and dread. Finally, an unprecedented diagnostic report was laid before Rowan and me. Lilith was given a preliminary diagnosis of an exceedingly rare Congenital indiscriminate malevolence disorder. Her brain structure is markedly different from that of a typical person. The regions responsible for empathy and emotion are virtually dormant, yet, the areas governing aggression and desire are hyperactive. In the words of experts, she was born without that essential human wiring. She is incapable of feeling love or empathy. All of her actions are driven solely by the most primal desires and malice. Her very existence poses an immense, unpredictable threat to herself, her family, and society at large. The final recommendation is to transfer her to the nation's only psychiatric research institute equipped with a specialized infant and toddler custodial center to undergo long-term, isolated observation and treatment. That means Lilith will grow up in a completely sealed environment. Her entire life will be spent under the cold surveillance of instruments and researchers. Perhaps this is her best, and only, possible fate. Rowan and I signed the documents. From the moment the ink dried, the name Lilith was erased from our lives. The day the paperwork was finalized, my mother-in-law came. She seemed to have aged a decade in an instant, her hair now mostly gray. She didn't cry or make a scene, nor did she utter any more curses. She just stood by my hospital bed, looking at me for a long, long time. Finally, from within her clothes, she produced a worn, old passbook. She pressed it into my hand. "This is all the money I've managed to save over the years." Her voice was hoarse. "The password is Rowan's birthday. For Clara, consider this my final gesture of love. As her grandmother, I have failed you all. I have failed Clara." With that, she bowed deeply. Then, she turned and staggered away. I watched her retreating figure, a tumult of emotions churning inside me. I handed the bankbook to Rowan, without even glancing at it. He donated all the money inside to the hospital's newborn foundation in Clara's name, to help other premature babies, like Clara, in their brave fight for survival. 2 weeks later, I was discharged from the hospital. A month later, Clara was out of the incubator and back in my arms. We moved to a new home. We left that house, the one that held too many nightmares. We started our new life in a sunny, pleasant neighborhood. Clara grew up so fast. She has the most wonderful laugh, when she smiles. Her eyes crinkle into two beautiful little crescents. It was exactly the same as in the dream. Her favorite thing was to snuggle in Rowan's arms and use her little hands to grab at her daddy's chin. Rowan had become a complete and utter doting father. He fumbled his way through learning how to change diapers and prepare formula. The first thing he did every day after work was rush to the nursery, scoop up his little princess, and cover her with kisses. The house was always filled with Clara's cheerful babbles and giggles, and Rowan's gentle replies. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling window, spilling across the floor. I held Clara in my arms, gently rocking in the chair. Rowan came over and wrapped his arms around us from behind. He kissed my forehead, then pressed a kiss to Clara's soft, pink cheek. "Rhea," he asked softly, "can you still hear me now?" I knew what he was asking. I shook my head. From the day Lilith was sent away, all the voices in my mind vanished. That golden finger that had accompanied me for 2 lifetimes, having fulfilled its purpose, quietly took its leave. Now, I can hear nothing at all. I can only hear the rustle of the wind through the leaves. I can only hear my husband's loving whisper in my ear, and the heavenly, contented sigh of this little angel in my arms. That's enough. I leaned down and pressed a kiss onto Clara's smooth forehead. "My child, welcome to the world. This time, Mom will spend a lifetime watching over you." Story 2. My mom loves to fake fainting. During the marriage discussion with my brothers-in-laws, she pretended to pass out and secretly called the police upon hearing the bride price was 88,000 yuan. "After coming to," she said with relief, "zero bride price is the norm now. They were asking for an outrageous amount. If I hadn't pretended to faint, you would have been ripped off." When the police arrived, my brother's fiancée slapped him, and they broke up on the spot. When I went to pay for the provincial exam interview training course, she threw a fit and demanded a refund from the institution, insisting on paying only after I passed. Then she rolled her eyes and pretended to faint again. This led to me being rejected by all major training institutions and failing the provincial exam interview. I'd had enough and told her to stop meddling in our affairs whenever she felt like it. She then put on a heartbroken expression and said, "Everything I do is for you. What mother would ever harm her child? You'll understand when you become a mother yourself." Later, my cousin developed uremia, which led to kidney failure. When it came time for a tissue match, she pushed me forward but faked a fainting spell to get out of it herself. As a result, I refused to be a donor. My cousin's condition worsened and he passed away. My uncle blamed me for his death, and in a fit of rage, he attacked both me and my brother who tried to protect me, killing us with a knife. Given a second chance, I found myself back on the day my brother and his future wife were discussing marriage. My phone vibrated, and I saw a message that my brother had just sent. "Nesta, are you awake? I've already called your sister-in-law. We're canceling the family meetup today. When you see this, remember to cancel the private dining room we booked earlier." Then I heard the front door close. I'm going to find a place to rent now. Move in with me today. No matter what mom and dad say to you, don't go back. A sharp pang shot through my heart, my nose stung, and tears began to fall. It was as if fate had given my brother and me another chance, allowing us to be reborn. In our past life, my mother suggested that our families meet for a meal to discuss my brother's marriage. He was overjoyed, thinking it would be the start of a beautiful union. But it turned out to be the beginning of a nightmare. My brother and his fiancée had been dating for 3 years, they had a strong relationship, and she was always kind to me as well. After the two families met, the atmosphere was incredibly harmonious, and my mom couldn't stop complimenting how beautiful my future sister-in-law was. Halfway through the meal, the conversation naturally turned to the topic of the bride price. When he heard the amount of $88,000, my brother's eyes lit up, and he looked at his fiancée with newfound tenderness. Even though $88,000 isn't really that much, my mom suddenly got upset. She clutched her chest, claimed she couldn't breathe, fainted right at the table, and then secretly called the police. Soon enough, the police arrived. My brother's fiancée and her family looked utterly mortified, glaring daggers at him, though he kept apologizing and trying to explain. It was no use, the damage was done, in the end, seeing how remorseful my brother was. The police gave his fiancée's family a stern talking to before leaving. Feeling utterly disrespected by my brother, his fiancée slapped him across the face and stormed off with her family in tow. Meanwhile, my mother wore a triumphant smirk and bragged to my brother, "These days, zero dowry is the norm. They were asking for the moon. If I hadn't faked fainting, you'd have been taken for a fool." My brother was left speechless when he tried to reach out to his fiancée again. Not only was he blocked and deleted, but she also broke up with him. Afterward, the news that my brother was unwilling to pay the $88,000 bride price spread all over local social media. In the end, he had no choice but to move to another province for work. Even after ruining my brother's marriage, my mother still refused to admit any fault. Instead, she became even more overbearing and started meddling in my life as well. Later, when I made it to the provincial exam interview round and enrolled in a well-known local training program, my mother took it upon herself to cause a scene at the institution. She cried and demanded a refund up front, insisting payment should only be made if I passed. After learning that fees were only refunded upon failure, by the time I realized what had happened, I had been blacklisted by all local civil service exam prep agencies, and I ended up failing the provincial interview. I was absolutely furious and couldn't take it anymore. I pointed my finger right at her and told her to stop meddling in our affairs. She looked utterly heartbroken and said, "Everything I've done is for your own good. What mother would ever harm her child? You'll understand when you become a mother yourself." I packed my bags and moved to my brother's place in another province, cutting off all contact with her. I never expected to get a tearful call from Dad saying something terrible had happened at home. Mom was in the hospital, and we needed to come back immediately. It turned out my cousin had been diagnosed with uremia and urgently needed a kidney transplant. My mom fainted repeatedly after hearing the news, when my uncle knelt down, begging her to get tested for a match. I felt a hard shove from behind that pushed me forward to face him, while my mother, right behind me, pretended to faint again. "Nesta, he's my only nephew, your own cousin. Isn't it only right that you get tested to see if you're a match?" I stood my ground and refused to get tested. That day, my cousin's condition suddenly took a turn for the worse, and despite emergency efforts, he passed away. My uncle blamed me for his death and came after me with a kitchen knife. My brother stepped in to protect me, but my uncle slashed his throat. I was then caught and stabbed over a dozen times by my uncle, ultimately dying from the wounds. When I woke up again, I found myself back at the beginning of that nightmare day. This time, my brother and I won't just sit back and wait for disaster to strike. My brother had just left when my mom got up and started making a racket. She was humming a tune and turning up the volume on everything she did, just like before. She grabbed a mop and started banging it loudly against my door. Even with my ears covered, I could still hear the sounds of the mop sloshing and the soy milk machine whirring. I opened the door and locked eyes with her as she bustled about frantically. She immediately shot me an accusatory look and said, "Day in and day out, I'm working myself to death in this house, and not a single person lifts a finger to help." Hearing my mother's voice, I was reminded that she had been just the same in my past life. Back then, guilt washed over me, and I took on all the household chores, but she still never stopped complaining about how lazy I was and how I did nothing around the house. So I stormed into the kitchen and slammed the buzzing soy milk machine onto the floor. Only after watching it shatter into pieces and seeing soy milk splatter everywhere did I finally feel my anger subside. My mom let out a shriek, "What's wrong with you?" causing a scene first thing in the morning. As she said this, she raised a mop as if to hit me. My dad, woken by the commotion in the living room, came out looking annoyed. He always pretended not to hear, but I was the one who put the noise-canceling cover on the soy milk maker every morning to avoid disturbing him, but he never showed me the same consideration. I put my hands on my hips and took the initiative. "Didn't you hear what Mom said? She's exhausted, Dad." Don't just stand there. Go wash the dishes in the sink. You shut up. My mom immediately jumped to her feet. I let out a soft chuckle. She never truly loved me. She just relished the maternal authority over me and basked in the privileges that filial piety afforded her. What kind of girl lazes around like you? Can't even get up to cook in the morning. If you keep this up after marriage, your mother-in-law will make your life a living hell. Then she rushed to knock on my brother's door. When he didn't answer after what felt like forever, she clutched her chest, gasping for breath, before going limp, a familiar performance, and collapsing into my father's arms. The commotion from our house woke the neighbors, who were still fast asleep. Fine, Stanley, hiding in your room while your mother gets bullied. Open this door right now, you ungrateful brat, with a furious roar. Dad kicked my brother's flimsy door after a tense silence, and it crashed to the ground. You little bastard. Just wait till I get my hands on you, he trailed off mid-sentence, realizing the room was completely empty. The neighbors, woken by the noise, had already come downstairs and were knocking on our door. Apartment 502, what's all this racket so early in the morning? Don't you know it's only 5 o'clock? You might not have to work, but the rest of us do. My mother groggily woke up, clutching her chest as she opened the door. She immediately started sobbing to the neighbors about how hard she'd worked to raise her 2 children, only for me to smash the soy milk maker just because she asked me to wake up early, saying it made her so angry she fainted, and that my brother didn't even care. The neighbors all accused us of being ungrateful wretches. I didn't want to engage with her at first, but I couldn't let my brother's reputation be tarnished. In our previous life, it was under the accusations of this mob that he had no choice but to leave and find work in another province. Enough, it's only 5 o'clock and you're already making breakfast. You might not mind the noise, but the neighbors certainly do. As soon as I spoke up, the neighbors shifted their focus. After all, they just wanted a good night's sleep, not to settle someone else's family disputes. My mom had no choice but to sulkily promise she'd never get up at 5 a.m. to make breakfast again. After closing the door, my mom sat on the sofa sobbing, and even through her tears she made sure to complain to my dad. We're meeting the in-laws today, so I made a special effort to get up early and prepare a nice breakfast for everyone, and you don't even appreciate it. Then she immediately turned her frustration toward my brother, who wasn't home, muttering, he was here last night, but this morning he's gone without a word. What? Is he embarrassed by his own parents or something? Dad's face was as dark as a thundercloud. You left without even saying a word. What's the point of raising a son like you, Nesta? Tell your brother to come back right now. After all the hard work your mother and I put into raising you, and this is the thanks we get. Before I could even explain on my brother's behalf, Dad immediately started scolding. Watching my father being provoked into a rage, I was absolutely furious. What on earth are they so smug about? They insisted on quitting their jobs to start a business when they were young, but it failed and left them drowning in debt. They only live comfortably now because they got lucky with a housing demolition payout. With no real skills, my dad at most does some part-time work delivering water or food. My mom is the apple of his eye and hasn't worked in over a decade. They've already given up on working long before retirement, barely making $1,000 a month from side gigs. How dare they claim they're supporting me, all talk and no action, just self-indulgent sentiment, too. Just like in my past life, my mom pointed at my messy desk and said, Nesta, no offense, but you really should tidy up your room, it's a complete pigsty. Is that civil service exam really that hard? Do you actually need to sign up for a prep course, remembering the painful experiences from my past life? I quickly closed the door and replied dismissively, it's not that hard. I won't sign up for it, I'll do whatever you say. My mom immediately brightened up, that's more like it. Don't say I'm meddling, but money is so hard to come by these days. I'm only thinking of what's best for you. You'd be better off buying a gold bracelet with that money than signing up for some class. Then she started going on about how filial her best friend's daughter was, buying her a massive 50-gram gold bracelet. Every now and then she'd shoot me a meaningful look, all the while insisting, bracelets, necklaces. I've never been one for jewelry, Nesta, don't you go buying me any. Gold prices are sky high right now. It'd be a waste of money, just not worth it. I chuckled lightly, don't worry, I'm not buying anything. My mother was taken aback, clearly displeased. She turned her face away and ignored me. My father quickly tried to soothe her, promising to buy her a full set of gold jewelry, which finally brought a smile to her face. By 9 o'clock. My brother still hadn't returned, and my mother began pacing back and forth anxiously. She told my father to call my brother, then snatched the phone as soon as it connected. She immediately started scolding him. Stanley, we agreed you'd meet the in-laws today. Why aren't you back yet? I've already prepared the gifts. Didn't cost much, but they're just right for the in-laws. The moment this was mentioned, my brother completely lost it. Last time, after bringing those gifts home, my brother had planned to take them to apologize to his fiancée, but when he realized they were all cheap knockoffs, he knew showing up with them wouldn't just fail to win her back, it would probably earn him a beating. I immediately snatched the phone and covered for him, explaining that he had an urgent business trip for work and that meeting the in-laws would have to be postponed. That's how I managed to smooth things over with my mom. Since she couldn't stir up trouble today, my mom turned her attention to me. She scrutinized my worn-out pajamas that I'd been wearing for years and frowned. You have a job now, yet you can't even afford decent sleepwear. If the neighbors see you like this today, won't it embarrass your father and me? Seeing she was about to nitpick again, I hurried back to my room to change. After all, last time I bought new pajamas. She scolded me, saying that old ones could still last a few more years, and that buying new ones was wasting my father's hard-earned money. Soon enough, my mom started asking about my future sister-in-law's address. My future sister-in-law is such a sweet person, and my mom has met her a few times, but she never really paid much attention before. She kept putting on airs like a mother-in-law, barely acknowledging her when she tried to talk. Too bad she's green with regret now. But she still has no idea where they live, so she grabbed onto me and wouldn't let go, her other hand clutching her chest like she was about to pass out. Nesta, tell me right now, did your brother and that girlfriend of his break up? Is she refusing to marry him? I knew it. Your brother's always been socially awkward since he was a kid, no idea how to talk to girls. Guess it's up to me. Hurry up and give me her address. We'll go as a family with gifts to visit in person, Dad chimed in. Your mother's right. Your brother said he's leaving for a business trip right away without any notice. The in-laws would definitely be upset hearing that. I rolled my eyes and let her play dead, eyes shut, head tilted to the side like she'd fainted, maybe realizing she wouldn't get answers from me. Who knows what Mom was thinking? She actually started searching online for doxing methods. My mother's behavior sent a chill down my spine. But all she had was my future sister-in-law's name, no photo. Not even a phone number. After being called crazy by someone online, she just blocked and deleted them. Undeterred, she went downstairs and started pestering the neighbors with questions. But how could they know where she lived when they'd never even met her? After several failed attempts, she finally gave up. My phone lit up moments later. It was my uncle's family inviting us to his son's college celebration banquet. My uncle has made a fortune by collecting cash gifts, hosting events for everything from weddings down to my cousin scoring full marks on an exam. Naturally, everyone who attends these gatherings is fed up. In the past, because my brother was discussing his wedding plans that day, our family couldn't make it to the banquet. My uncle's family then made outrageous demands, claiming our absence was disrespectful and insisting we pay double the customary gift money. My mom argued that my brother might need our uncle's support in the future, so she persuaded my dad to just go along with it and send the money. Upon receiving the invitation, my mother immediately agreed and brought our whole family to the hotel for the event. Just as expected, when my uncle saw that my brother wasn't there, he immediately pointed at my mother's face and demanded, "Is my nephew not coming because he looks down on me?" My mother forced a smile and apologized, saying ingratiatingly, "Stanley is away on a business trip and really can't make it." My uncle snorted coldly and immediately demanded double the gift money. He then told my mother to help my aunt entertain the guests, while my father stayed by his side to drink on his behalf. I immediately scoffed, "Uncle, nowadays we're supposed to break with old customs. You can't just throw banquets and collect money whenever you feel like it." My mother's face darkened. She was already upset about having to spend the money, and now she was getting worked up. "Exactly, brother. Your son only got into a vocational college. What's the point of throwing a celebration? It's downright embarrassing." My mother's loud outburst put my uncle on the spot. My cousin, who had been playing games nearby, shot up from his seat. "What's wrong with vocational college? Are vocational students not human? Don't we deserve to celebrate our academic achievements?" My father immediately tried to explain, but my mother clutched her chest, gasped for air a few times, and then fainted. In the past, my uncle would have frantically called for an ambulance and then scolded my brother and me harshly, but my uncle wasn't going to play dumb this time. With all the guests around, he couldn't yell outright, so he just scowled and said, "Stop pretending to faint. If you have something to say it directly. As your elder brother, if I've wronged you in any way, speak up today, or this isn't over between our families." My father held my mother in his arms, completely at a loss. My mother kept her eyes shut, pretending to be unconscious. The crowd murmured disapprovingly, clearly disgusted by my uncle's behavior. The police arrived shortly after, and only then did my mother slowly come to. One of the guests immediately grabbed an officer's hand and spilled everything about my uncle's misconduct, unlike the dowry incident, where my brother stepped in to explain and the police just gave a brief warning before leaving. This time they not only reprimanded my uncle but also demanded he return all the gift money he received. After my uncle's family bowed and scraped their way through seeing the police off, the guests swarmed forward to reclaim their gift money, and my uncle completely lost it. "Fine, over a bit of gift money, you've ruined my son's college celebration. You're some brother, stabbing your own flesh and blood in the back. Don't ever call me brother again, as far as I'm concerned." You're no family of mine, consider our families cut off. He grabbed my father by the collar and punched him, while my aunt rushed over and started pulling my mother's hair, scratching and clawing at her. My aunt shrieked, I always knew you were rotten to the core. We never intended to invite you in the first place, that's why we only called you this morning. The nerve of you, showing up uninvited. The scene instantly erupted into chaos. I was just planning to stand aside and watch the drama unfold when I caught my cousin shooting me a venomous glare. I'd almost forgotten. There was still a vicious dog lurking here ready to bite. I struck first, grabbing his ridiculous emo hair, slamming him to the ground, and landing several hard slaps across his face. This is for pulling up my skirt back then, for secretly filming me in the shower, for spreading rumors that I was fooling around at school. I unleashed years of pent-up rage, leaving my cousin sobbing and gasping for air. My mom suddenly snapped out of it, yanking and dragging me off my cousin. Apologize to your cousin. I shoved her away. Apologize? What do I have to apologize for? I did nothing wrong. They're the ones who should be apologizing, the aunt immediately shrieked. You ruined our family's good fortune, and you still have the nerve to demand an apology from us. She charged forward again, not at me, but at my mother, whom she could bully, and began clawing and pulling at her. My mother cried out for my father to save her, but he was blocked by my uncle. Then she called out to me, but I stood frozen in place. With a sharp cry of pain, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed to the ground unconscious. My aunt, knowing her tendency to fake fainting, yanked out a chunk of her hair. When she still didn't wake up, my aunt grew frightened and finally let go of her. After this incident, my mother completely cut off contact with my uncle's family. 3. But then she started gloating. If I hadn't passed out, we never would have gotten our gift money back. Then she shot me a furious glare. You ungrateful daughter, just standing there without lifting a finger to help. If I hadn't fainted, I might have been beaten to death by now. After getting beaten, she realized that playing dead was actually her trump card. Even though I'd gotten it off my chest, I was still terrified by her hysterical behavior. My brother had found an apartment and wanted me to move in. While our parents were out grocery shopping, we started sneaking around to move my luggage. Right as we reached the doorway, we bumped into our parents who had forgotten something and come back home. She sat on the floor, slapping her thighs and wailing. You two siblings just get more ungrateful the older you get. How dare you sneak out and move away while your father and I weren't home? Your own mother got beaten up, and you didn't even stand up for me or show any concern. I've raised two ungrateful wretches. As she spoke, she clutched her chest and began gasping for breath. Seeing my mother was about to faint again, I lunged forward and pressed hard on her philtrum, growling a threat. If you faint again, I'll just pinch you awake. Let's see whether you faint faster or I pinch faster. My mother leaned against my father's chest, cursing vehemently and accusing my brother and me of being unfilial. My brother stepped in front of me, glaring at her coldly, perhaps because we didn't react and there was no one around downstairs at that hour. My mom, supported by my dad, changed the subject and started asking about my brother's marriage plans. Stanley, if she's not willing, I'll have Auntie introduce you to a few others. They'll definitely be better than her. I never liked her anyway. She doesn't even look like she has good fortune. She went on and on criticizing my future sister-in-law, then even pulled out her phone to show my brother some photos. Enough. Whether I get married or not is none of your business. My brother grabbed the luggage and pulled me out of the neighborhood. But then we heard my dad's panicked shout from behind. My mom had fainted again. After moving in with my brother, my mood lifted right away, and I signed up for the bar exam. After giving it a lot of thought lately, I've decided to give up on the civil service exam. I can barely handle my mom as it is. If I actually got in, who knows what kind of trouble she'd stir up. I go to and from work like normal, but I can't shake the feeling that someone's watching me. Maybe it's just in my head. I thought things would just quietly go on without a hitch. But then the HR manager hit me with this. Nesta, I heard you're preparing for the civil service exam. Are you sure you'll be coming back to work? Your mom made a point of telling us that if you're studying full-time, you won't be returning. I was trembling with rage. Studying full-time for the civil service exam was never part of my plan, but I never expected that after I decided not to enroll in a training program, my mom would show up at my office and start spouting nonsense. Suppressing my anger, I went home and confronted her. Who told you I was going to study full-time for the civil service exam? Didn't I tell you not to interfere in my affairs? My mom sat on the couch, leaning against my dad with half her body, tears streaming down her face in distress. Seeing this, my dad's heart ached for her. He pulled out a tissue to wipe her tears while scolding me. Nesta, the competition for civil service exams is fierce now, and the content is more complex. Your mom knows you're under pressure. Studying full-time would let you focus better and improve your chances of success. Plus, you haven't signed up for any prep courses yet, so you're already a step behind others. I scoffed. No need. I'm giving up on the civil service exam. What? My mother gasped, clutching her chest and hyperventilating before fainting. I'm so sick of her theatrics. I once knelt by her feet, begging her to wake up. I once felt guilty and wanted to make her proud by succeeding. I once cared so much that I rushed over when she was in trouble, only to be thrown under the bus. With that thought, I picked up my bag and walked away without looking back. Just a couple of days later, the police tracked me down. When I arrived at the police station, I saw my mother wailing hysterically while pointing and screaming at the man across from her. I recognized the man. He was the head of the most prestigious interview training institution in town. The director looked at me as if I were a lifesaver and quickly spoke up. "Miss Nesta, please explain to your mother. You did come to our institution to inquire about training fees, but you never actually pay for our services." My mom avoided eye contact and insisted stubbornly, "Stop covering for her. She paid you. And now she's not even going to the interview. You have to refund the money." The manager was exasperated. "Ma'am, let's be reasonable. Miss Nesta truly never paid our institution, and with all this commotion you're causing today, you've disrupted my work. You owe me compensation for my lost time." The mention of compensation for lost time made my mom panic. "Your actions have damaged our institution's reputation, and we demand a public apology from you." My mother suddenly turned to me with a displeased look and said, "This is all your fault for insisting on enrolling in that training program. Now we've been scammed out of our money with no way to get it back." Then, with practiced ease, she clutched her chest, began gasping for air, and promptly fainted. The officers couldn't tell if her fainting was genuine, but they still helped her to a chair, gave her small sips of water, and called over the station's on-duty forensic examiner. The forensic examiner merely lifted my mother's eyelid and immediately called the police aside. Clearly, he had caught her faking unconsciousness. Then the examiner pressed firmly on her calf at the Zisonli acupoint, and she jolted upright like a leaping carp. "Had enough of pretending," the officer snapped. "Who do you think you're fooling? Trying to play dead to avoid consequences? Do you think we're just here for decoration? My mother stayed silent, too nervous to speak, and shot me a pleading look, hoping I'd put in a good word for her. But why would I do that? In my past life, she got me blacklisted by major institutions, and when I failed the provincial exam interview, she mocked me, saying I didn't study hard enough and just didn't have what it takes. When I stayed silent, my mom started defending herself. How is this my fault? It's all on Nesta. How was I supposed to know she actually didn't sign up for the training course? If she'd told me earlier, none of this would have happened. Are you deaf or what? I told you I gave up on the civil service exam," I shouted angrily. Later, the police spoke with me privately, hoping I could mediate a settlement with the institution's director. They probably wanted to help me, considering I might still take the civil service exam in the future, even though my mom was being unreasonable. I shook my head. As you can see, my mom loves to stir up trouble. She often fakes fainting to get her way. If we let her off easy today, she'll just pull something else tomorrow. Better to see this through and teach her a lesson. The police had no choice but to detain my mom for 15 days after she was caught demanding money with a banner outside the institution. My mom cried and cursed me, calling me all sorts of names, then called my dad to complain. I felt bad for the institution's director. No matter which life, he always gets dragged into my mess. I apologized repeatedly and promised to compensate him for his lost time. The person in charge wasn't heartless either, and immediately softened their stance, deciding to let my mother off the hook. I quickly intervened. "If you still want her to come and cause a scene at your place, then go ahead and release her. I guarantee that if you let her go today, she'll immediately think you're guilty and turn around to bite you." The supervisor looked at me with genuine pity and asked if I was really going to skip the provincial exam interview. I gave him a straightforward answer. "I'm not going. With a mother like mine, even if I passed the interview, I'd probably fail the political screening. If my mom faints in front of the screening committee and then pours her heart out like she's finally found someone to complain to, that's when I'll truly feel hopeless." My dad rushed to the police station, called my brother right away, and then spent what felt like forever yelling at me and pointing his finger in my face. From the limited reliable information I gathered, I pieced together the key details. It turns out my mother had a difficult childbirth when I was born, nearly suffering a major hemorrhage that left her physically frail, prone to occasional fainting spells. I scoffed. Occasional fainting only happens when there are issues with the brain, heart, or spine. You think life is a movie where you can just faint on command from any illness. I recalled the full medical checkup from my past life. My mother's health was actually perfectly fine. Unfortunately, the detention period for this incident wasn't very long, but mother remained silent for a long while. After submitting my withdrawal from the interview to the examination board, I buried myself in studying for the bar exam, determined not to return home no matter what excuse my parents used to summon me. Yet that day inevitably arrived. My mother texted, "Haven't seen you or your brother come home for months. What sin did I commit to deserve such ungrateful children? You must come home today. If you don't come back, you'll regret it." She then launched into a long story about how she and her brother had relied on each other for survival. explaining that he only had her as a sister and just one son. Her nephew from her maiden family was her last hope. Now, with our cousin suffering from uremia and kidney failure, he urgently needs help from family. She expects the two of us to contribute financially or lend a hand however we can. I rolled my eyes. Sounds noble, but it's obvious she just wants us to get tested for organ compatibility. She texted again. Did you see my message? Ignoring my messages? You've got some nerve? But neither my brother nor I replied. The next day, Mom was sobbing hysterically at the company entrance, passing out and coming to repeatedly, drawing a huge crowd of onlookers. The HR person looked at me, and I let out a helpless sigh before heading downstairs. When my mother saw me, she took a sharp breath and fainted on the spot. The crowd immediately erupted in chaos. I heard someone accusing me, saying I must have done something terrible to make my own mother faint from anger. My brother, upon hearing the news, rushed over and stood protectively in front of me. You just want Nesta and me to get tested as kidney donors for our cousin. Well, I'm telling you, not a chance. The crowd erupted into heated discussion, seemingly shocked to learn that my mother had fainted because she was pressuring her own children to donate a kidney to someone else. I looked at my mother, who seemed on the verge of fainting again, and said, Mom, could you please stop pretending to faint? If your cousin means so much to you, why won't you get tested for a donor match? My uncle, who had been watching from a distance, rushed over at the sight of this. Nesta, I'm begging you, don't be so cold and selfish. How can you stand by and do nothing? He's your cousin. It's just a compatibility test for now. What if you're not even a match? Just give it a try, please. I'm on my knees begging you both. With that, he dropped to his knees and started kowtowing frantically to my brother and me. The voices around us began to side with Uncle, but I felt a chill run through my body. He had been hiding outside and only rushed in now, and none of us had noticed him earlier. Soon, a cold glint at his waist caught my eye. I tightened my grip on my brother's hand, my lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Could it be that this time, we won't escape the fate of being cut down? My uncle's phone rang. It seemed my cousin's condition had taken a sudden turn for the worse. I pulled out the pepper spray I'd prepared earlier and doused my uncle's face with it. My brother immediately pinned him to the ground. It wasn't until I'd wrestled that gleaming kitchen knife from his waist that I finally felt a sense of relief. The news of my cousin's failed resuscitation came through my uncle's phone, sending him into a wild frenzy. He thrashed and struggled to break free. Even my brother, a strong young man, couldn't hold him down. Just then, the company's security team arrived with shields, and together, several of them managed to fully restrain my uncle. 5. When the police arrived, my uncle was still screaming in disbelief, refusing to accept the truth. His son had been perfectly fine when he left the hospital. Now he was suddenly gone. He glared at us fiercely. If you had agreed to the compatibility testing sooner, my son would still be alive. This is all your fault, even after being reprimanded by the police. He showed no remorse, insisting, they're my sister's children. She has every right to have them tested for compatibility with my son. It's too late now. My son, he's gone. He broke down sobbing. Before he could carry out the act, my brother and I uncovered his plan. That's why he was never convicted, but he ended up resenting us deeply. It's like a sword hanging over our heads, leaving me constantly on edge. It wasn't long before something happened. By the time my dad called, he was already out of danger and at the hospital. Nesta, do you even care about your old man anymore? And that little brat Stanley, have you forgotten who put food on the table for you? If you don't show up, I'll take you to court for neglecting and failing to support your elders. My brother was furious when he heard this, but I managed to calm him down before we both rushed to the hospital. My father lay in the hospital bed with a dark scowl on his face, bossing my mother around. My mother didn't dare object in the slightest, bustling about to fetch tea and water. When she saw my brother and me, she suddenly burst into tears, followed by those all too familiar gasping breaths. My father grabbed a glass and hurled it at her. Stop faking it. You think you're going to faint? Try it, and I'll smash your head in. Mom's eyes snapped open, and she stood there weeping uncontrollably. Dad's drastic change in attitude toward her left both my brother and me utterly dismayed. It was only later that we learned the full story. Last night, our uncle showed up at my parents' door in the dead of night. My father, completely unsuspecting, opened the door and was immediately stabbed with the fruit knife in his hand. My father's blood-curdling scream instantly echoed through the hallway, jolting my half-asleep mother wide awake. But my poor mother, upon stepping out and seeing the pool of blood on the floor, went weak in the knees and collapsed to the ground. Who knows what was going through her mind? Shortly after, my uncle was pinned down by 2 security guards. The guards later explained that they had been tailing him because his behavior seemed suspicious. Then came the critical moment. Just as my father desperately needed to stop the bleeding, my mother fainted. My father, who knew all too well that my mother often faked fainting spells, felt his vision go dark. He could sense his blood draining rapidly, and the pain from his wound was unbearable. In his moment of despair, a security guard knocked on the neighbor's door and managed to temporarily stop the bleeding, ultimately saving his life. Now that you two are here, make her get out. From now on, the two of you will take care of me. After Dad finished speaking, my brother and I exchanged a glance. I spoke up, trying to persuade him. Dad, you know what they say, couples who quarrel at night make up by morning. Besides, Mom didn't mean any harm. She's had a weak constitution ever since my difficult birth, when she nearly hemorrhaged. That's why she faints under stress. Don't hold a grudge. You've been married for ages. Just focus on living well together. My dad snapped. Weak constitution, she's just faking it, I said meaningfully. So you knew all along that my mother has been fainting on purpose. You and Mom haven't reached retirement age yet, and you're not at the point where my brother and I need to support you. Even if you took this to court, you wouldn't win. In the future, my brother and I will pay the legally required support after you retire. Don't even think about asking for anything beyond that. My father tried to say something more, but my brother and I had already turned and walked away without looking back. Later, they even tried to get relatives and friends to intervene, hoping to persuade my brother and me to return home and be filial to them, but we blocked every single one of them. We later heard that they often argued at home, to the point where they couldn't even stand to be in the same room, and my mother never fainted again. But all of that has nothing to do with us anymore. I placed my freshly acquired lawyer's license next to my brother and sister-in-law's marriage certificate, took a photo, and posted it on my social media with just 4 words. The future looks bright.